Chapter 110. These words were the King of Song's admonition to Wang Chong. At the same time, they were also the King of Song's heartfelt words. It wasn't easy for the Tang dynasty to reach its current height, and it wasn't easy for the Central Plains to reach its current height. It took several thousand years for such a great emperor to appear in the Central Plains. As for the current holy emperor, the King of Song respected him from the bottom of his heart. This was precisely the reason why he couldn't tolerate any blemish on the holy emperor's name. For a ruler to take the wife of a subject, this was against the moral principles. For a father to take the wife of his son, this was against the moral principles. It would be a huge stain on any monarch's reputation if they did something that went against the rules and ethics. The current holy emperor was a man of bold vision and wisdom. It wasn't easy for the Tang dynasty to reach its current height. Thus, the King of Song couldn't allow such a thing to happen to the current holy emperor. If anyone dared to oppose him, if anyone dared to support this matter, they would be his enemy. If Wang Chong dared to dissuade or oppose him on this matter, then the King of Song would truly have misjudged him. For such a person, the more capable and talented he was, the greater the harm he would bring to the royal court. If Wang Chong really wanted to dissuade him, then as long as he was still in the royal court, he would never allow Wang Chong to stand out in the royal court. Even if Wang Chong was the descendant of Duke Jiu, the son of Wang Gung. Who? The bamboo forest around the fake mountain rustled, but the atmosphere was extremely heavy. Even Lu Ting was silent by the side, his expression extremely solemn. Wang Chong sighed deeply in his heart. He knew that no matter what he said at this moment, as long as he opened his mouth, it would be wrong. However, he couldn't ignore the consort Tai Zhen incident. The impact of this matter was too great. This was not only because the King of Song was the Wang family's backer, but also because big uncle Wang Zhen would be implicated in this matter. More importantly, Wang Chong understood that if he wanted to fulfill his mission and change the fate of the Central Plains and the Tang dynasty, the King of Song was an indispensable part of it. As the saying goes, nothing is perfect, and no one is perfect. The King of Song might have some shortcomings, but he was the most proactive person in the imperial court and the strongest supporter of the military. Regardless of whether it was King Qi or the Yao clan, neither of them possessed such foresight. Their vision was too limited, and they would only stare at the inside. The Yao family was good at scheming, and they were best at fighting among themselves. What King Qi wanted was power. If the King of Song were to fall, they would be in charge of the overall situation. For the Tang dynasty, it would definitely be a disaster rather than a blessing. In the future catastrophe, the imperial court needed someone like the King of Song, the Tang dynasty needed someone like the King of Song, the Central Plains needed someone like the King of Song, and so did Wang Chong. Only with a powerful warmonger like the King of Song supporting him in the imperial court would he be able to carry out his plans without any worries. Therefore, no matter what, the King of Song couldn't fall. Be it for official or personal reasons, for the Tang dynasty or for the Wang family, Wang Chong couldn't allow him to fall. Your Highness, Wang Chong lowered his head and spoke, finding it abnormally difficult to say these two words. Wang Chong doesn't mean to support or oppose Your Highness. However, regarding the matter of consort Tai Zhen, why don't Your Highness ask Prince Shou? Wang. Silence. Unparalleled silence. Upon hearing the name, Prince Shou, both the King of Song and Lu Ting revealed astonished expressions. Prince Shou. Prince Shou. The two had thought of everything, but never in their wildest dreams did they expect Wang Chong to mention Prince Shou. Without a doubt, King Shou was the person at the center of the consort Taizhen storm. However, regardless of whether it was King Song, Lu Ting, King Qi, the Yao clan, or the officials of the royal court, the only person that no one had expected was King Shou! A father takes his son's wife, and a lord takes his subject's wife. In this matter, the most awkward and hurt one was undoubtedly Prince Shou, Li Mao. If the emperor wants the subject to die, the subject has no choice but to die. If the emperor's father wants to take his son's wife, what can this son do? Prince Shou had already been hurt once, and no one wanted him to be hurt a second time. Therefore, be it the king of Song, King Qi, or the officials in the imperial court, no one wanted to visit Prince Shou and ask for his opinion on this matter. The entire imperial court is involved in the matter of consort Tai Zhen. Wang Chong isn't trying to express anything, but why didn't your highness ask Prince Shou first before making a decision? Wang Chong said with his head lowered. Wang Chong felt that there were too many questions regarding this matter back then. Why would a wise and astute emperor who spent the first half of his life suddenly become so lustful toward women, to the point of disregarding half of the officials in the imperial court and demoting a prince of the imperial family and many important officials in the imperial court? If this person was a fatuous emperor, then so be it. However, he was publicly acknowledged as a wise emperor. However, in the matter of consort Tai Zhen, his actions were definitely not that of a wise emperor. Just like what the king of Song had said in his previous life, this was a huge stain on his reputation. The disparity between before and after was too great, and they didn't seem like the same person at all. Not only so, consort Tai Zhen was known as the #1 beauty of the Tang dynasty. She had a face that could captivate even the birds and beasts, as well as a beauty that outshone the moon. Regardless of which time-space she was in, she was publicly acknowledged as a beauty throughout the ages. Wang Chong had never met consort Tai Zhen before, so he didn't know what she looked like. However, Wang Chong had met Prince Shou, Li Mao. In his previous life, Wang Chong was a famous hedonistic son of a wealthy family in the capital. He was idle, ignorant, and incompetent. After the incident of consort Tai Zhen, Wang Chong had once accidentally met Prince Shou, Li Mao. At that time, Prince Shou's face was glowing, and he was full of smiles. No matter how he looked at it, he didn't look like someone who had just lost his true love and had his wife snatched away by his father. Even though it was only for an instant, Prince Shou sensed something and immediately dashed into the courtyard, never to appear again. However, that glimpse left a deep impression on Wang Chong. This was the first time that Wang Chong had met Prince Shou, and it was also the only time in his life. Now that Wang Chong had reincarnated and the incident of consort Tai Zhen happened once again, Wang Chong subconsciously recalled that encounter. He recalled the glowing and smiling Prince Shou. Wang Chong had a feeling that the matter of consort Tai Zhen wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. Is this what you want to say? The king of Song stared at Wang Chong said, and a glint flickered in his eyes. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking. Yes. Wang Chong clenched his teeth and said solemnly. He had wanted to say more and, if possible, persuade the king of Song to change his mind. However, Wang Chong knew that going too far was as bad as falling short. Given his current relationship with the king of Song, this was the most he could say. I understand. The king of Song's expression became much better, and he wasn't as stern as before. It's hard to explain the matters of the royal court in a few words. It's good that you are concerned about the matters of the royal court. However, there are many things that you will only understand after you grow up. After saying this, the king of Song left with Lu Ting. A moment later, the carriage started moving. Amidst the rumbling sounds, the carriage quickly left the Four Quarters Embassy and headed east. Sigh. Looking at the departing figure of the carriage, Wang Chong sighed deeply in his heart. Wang Chong knew that his words were in vain this time. The king of Song didn't listen to him. However, Wang Chong wasn't surprised by this outcome. At this moment, given the king of Song's state of mind, if he could really listen to the opinions of a teenager like him, he wouldn't be the king of Song. In fact, the king of Song's reaction was already beyond his expectations for the king of Song to say those words after hearing his words. But even so, Wang Chong didn't feel discouraged. Even though the king of Song didn't listen to his words, Wang Chong knew that when that matter happened in the near future, the king of Song probably wouldn't think so anymore. No matter what, I've already done all that I can. The rest is up to the will of the heavens. Wang Chong thought. Wang Chong wasn't worried about his big uncle, and he didn't intend to persuade him either. His big uncle and the King of Song had formed an alliance. If he could persuade the King of Song, he would surely be able to persuade his big uncle too. On the other hand, if he couldn't persuade the King of Song, with the King of Song taking the lead, it would be impossible to persuade his big uncle. Because that would be equivalent to asking his big uncle to betray the King of Song. Moreover, Wang Chong knew that if his big uncle really changed his mind, it might not be a good thing. Turning around, Wang Chong strode in the direction of the erudite pavilion. Your Highness, should we pay a visit to King Shou? At the same time, unknown to Wang Chong, another conversation was going on in the King of Song's carriage. You are thinking of, in the carriage, the King of Song raised an eyebrow and looked at Lu Ting in surprise. Even though Wang Chong had done some shocking things that didn't match his age, he was still a 15-year-old child. The King of Song didn't expect Lu Ting to actually listen to Wang Chong's words. That child's words aren't unreasonable. Besides, we won't lose anything by meeting King Shou, Lu Ting said. Even though Lu Ting didn't think that they should give in on the matter of consort Tai Zhen, that child didn't seem to be speaking without thinking either. The King of Song was silent, seemingly considering the feasibility of Lu Ting's words. Forget it. The King of Song pondered for a moment, but still shook his head. The matter of consort Tai Zhen is also something that King Shou can't mention. He has already been hurt once in this matter. If we do this again, it will be equivalent to opening his scars and sprinkling salt on them. Moreover, ever since this matter happened, King Shou has been in seclusion. Even if he wants to meet him, it won't be easy. It's better not to trouble him with this matter. The King of Song rejected Lu Ting's suggestion. Lu Ting sighed inwardly, knowing that the King of Song was still unwilling to touch King Shou's scars. It was true that King Shou was in seclusion and refused visitors, but with the identity of the King of Song's imperial uncle, if he insisted on meeting King Shou, how could he not meet him? The King of Song just didn't want to meet him. Let's abide by your Highness's decree. Chapter 111. With the departure of the King of Song, the officials, and the old subordinates of the old master, the Four Quarters Embassy finally quietened down. But by this time, the sky had already darkened. In previous birthdays, the family would have already started eating before anyone arrived. But this time, because there were too many people, it only ended at 5. Brat, I'll forget about it this time. It's already too late. Remember to hurry over when second sister calls for you. Before leaving, second sister entered the carriage and raised her fist threateningly. I understand. Do you think that I would dare to disobey second sister's orders? Wang Chong smiled. Only then did Wang Zhu Yan drop the matter. Just like how they came, the family boarded their own carriages and left in the direction they came from. Parting the curtains, Wang Chong took a final glance at the Four Quarters Embassy behind him. Under the night sky, the Four Quarters Embassy was shrouded in darkness, and only a few flickering lights could be seen. Wang Chong was well aware that a storm would soon sweep through the entire imperial court. Regardless of whether it was the regional commander's system or the consort Taizhen incident, the storm they stirred was sufficient to destabilize the royal court of the Tang dynasty for a very long period of time. However, to Wang Chong, all of this had nothing to do with him. He had already done all he could. What happened next wasn't something a child like him could resolve. It's about time for me to return and settle my matters, Wang Chong thought. Looking at the Four Quarters Embassy in the darkness behind him, he felt a tinge of regret. The Holy Emperor would definitely appear for grandfather's birthday. However, it was a pity that Wang Chong never had the chance to meet him. Even though the current Sage Emperor usually appeared in the day, he would only appear in the Four Quarters Embassy on the day of his grandfather's birthday. Only at night would the Sage Emperor appear in the Four Quarters Embassy after the officials had left. Thus, after so many years, Wang Chong had never met the Holy Emperor. This was one of his regrets. Let's go, child. His mother's voice sounded by his side. Wang Chong was dazed for a moment before he recovered. Go! A whip cracked outside the carriage, and it slowly headed towards the Wang family. The east side of the Four Quarters Embassy was separated by a tall wall. While the erudite pavilion was bustling with activity, the west side of the courtyard wall was deathly silent. There wasn't even a bit of light. The people of the Wang clan have all left. In the darkness, an old voice suddenly came, as if he had been listening to something. Yes, father, it's all gone. A middle-aged man's voice came from the darkness. It sounded very respectful. Chi. The sound of flint came from the darkness. Then, a faint flame lit up, and an ordinary oil lamp lit up in the room. The grease gradually outlined the face of a middle-aged man. This was a dignified face. With a single glance, one could tell that he held a high position and possessed extraordinary status. However, his eyes were filled with deep doubt, as if he was deeply troubled by something. If Wang Chong was here, he would definitely be shocked. Because this person was none other than the nemesis of the Wang clan, the one who schemed against Wang Chang's father, Yao Guangyi. In the battle by the borders, Yao Guangyi's cleverness had backfired, and he became the laughingstock of the entire capital. From then on, Yao Guangyi lived in seclusion, reflecting on his mistakes. However, on Duke Zhou's birthday, Yao Guangyi didn't stay in the Yao residence. Instead, he stayed in the room beside the Wang clan old master's erudite pavilion. For such a person to appear in the Four Quarters Embassy without the Wang clan knowing about it, this was a huge mistake. If the Wang clan knew that Yao Guangyi had been listening to them for an entire day, they would probably be shocked. Father, if I were to listen here for an entire day, I would know who in the Wang clan schemed against me. Forgive me for my foolishness, but I beseech Lord Father to enlighten me. Yao Guangyi lowered his head respectfully, as though he was seeking guidance from his father. The battle by the borders had always been a huge knot in his heart. To think that he had always prided himself on his intelligence, yet he had lost to the Wang clan in his forte. Without a doubt, this was a huge blow to him. It would have been fine if that was all. However, Yao Guangyi didn't even know how he lost or who he lost to. This was something that the prideful Yao Guangyi couldn't accept. If he didn't resolve this problem, Yao Guangyi would never be able to pull himself together. Pooh! There was no response from the room. The light from the oil lamp vaguely reflected the image of a white-skinned elder. This elder's hair and beard were all white, and his face was covered in wrinkles. Upon hearing Yao Guangyi's words, he only smiled faintly. Holding a thin stick, he lightly fiddled with the wick of the oil lamp. If one didn't know better, it would be hard to believe that this ordinary-looking elder fiddling with the wick of the oil lamp was another influential figure in the Tang dynasty, Yao Chong, Yao Yuanji, the Yao clan's old master Yao. Unlike the Wang clan's old master Wang Jiuling, Yao Chong had never led an army beyond the Great Wall and participated in any earth-shattering battles. Similarly, he had never been embroiled in any turmoil in the royal court, nor had he performed any heroic feats. Naturally, he didn't have any contributions to the throne. However, it was precisely this Yao Chong, Yao Yuanji, who had become an influential figure in the Tang dynasty, standing on equal footing with the Wang clan's old master Wang. In the royal court, his standing was extraordinary, and he was favored by the Holy Emperor. On top of that, he occupied a seat in the most illustrious and unique Four Quarters Embassy of the Tang dynasty. The Yao clan's old master Yao didn't rely on martial prowess to reach his current position. Did you hear the birthday greetings in the morning? Old Master Yao asked with a smile, bringing up an unimportant matter. I did. Yao Guangyi was taken aback, but he quickly replied. He knew that his father wouldn't speak of unimportant matters. How did it feel? Old Master Yao smiled. Retracting the needle that was fiddling with the wick of the oil lamp, he lightly blew on it, just like an ordinary old man. Lively, illustrious, and prosperous. If it's father's birthday, it won't pale in comparison. Yao Guangyi added. Old Master Yao narrowed his eyes and waved his hands with a smile. At his level of standing, he didn't need to listen to flattery anymore. What about now? Old Master Yao narrowed his eyes and asked once more. As he spoke, he placed the needle back into the box on the table and placed it neatly. Taking a closer look, one could see that there was more than one needle in the box. Every single needle had a black tip, and they were neatly stacked in the wooden box. Now. Quiet, serene, and cold. Yao Guangyi hesitated for a moment before replying. He still didn't understand what his father was trying to say. Ha, Guangyi, you better remember this. Life is like day and night. Just a moment ago, you might be famous and honorable, but in the next moment, you might end up like you are now, declining from the peak of your power, with no one showing any interest in you. This is the true portrayal of our clan of generals and ministers. Old Master Yao said. At the end of his words, he stared at Yao Guangyi with an indescribable gaze. Wang! Yao Guangyi was shocked. He didn't expect that the old master wanted him to listen to the Wang clan's day and night just to tell him this. In that instant, Yao Guangyi felt as though he had returned to his younger days, listening respectfully to the old master's teachings. Guangyi, do you know why you lost to the Wang clan by the borders? Do you still think that it was a coincidence? Ha, you are too conceited. It isn't easy for a clan to rise to its current position, and it takes several generations to achieve. But to destroy it, it only takes a day. It's precisely because I understand that life is fickle and that it is easy to gain and easy to lose. Thus, I have always been cautious and cautious, not daring to be careless. Child, this is the last lesson I want to teach you. Be careful. Old Master Yao said faintly. His eyes stared at Yao Guangyi, as though looking into the depths of the latter's soul. Shua. Yao Guangyi was taken aback and cold sweat dripped down his back. In that instant, he suddenly felt his father's state of mind. Father, I have learned my lesson. Yao Guangyi stood up and bowed respectfully. It wasn't easy for a clan to rise up. Knowing this, one had to be even more cautious. After being under his father's protection for so long, Yao Guangyi had already forgotten the feeling of being covered in thin ice. He had also forgotten that the reason why he could make a mistake without being punished was because of the old master's existence. It was precisely because of the old master's protection that he was able to sit in his current position. For so many years, he had always thought that he was the head of the Yao clan. But in reality, the true head of the Yao clan had always been his father. Looking at Yao Guangyi's cold sweat dripping down his back, old Master Yao finally nodded his head. It was a true awakening for him to understand the feeling of being covered in thin ice. There was no such thing as a perfect plan in the world. The reason why he was able to remain standing for so many years was because of the words covered in thin ice. The fact that you can understand this means that you can still be saved. As for the identity of the Wang clan that you wish to know, you will find out soon. As though responding to old Master Yao's words, a series of footsteps sounded from outside. A moment later, a fully armored commander of the Imperial Army walked in from outside. Paying respects to Duke Yao. The Imperial Army commander was travel-worn. Upon entering the room, he immediately kneeled down without raising his head. Upon seeing the Imperial Army commander before him, Yao Guangyi was astonished. The Imperial Army members in the Four Quarters Embassy were hand-picked by the Holy Emperor, and every single one of them was loyal and reliable. Yet, the old master was still able to plant a spy among them. Old Master Yao smiled but didn't reply. He only looked at the Imperial Army commander on the ground. Today is Duke Zhou's birthday banquet. Tell me everything you saw. Yes. With his head lowered, the Imperial Army commander swiftly recounted what he saw in the day. All right. Old Master Yao waved his hands, and the latter quickly rushed over. Even Yao Guangyi wasn't able to see his face clearly. The other party seemed to be intentionally concealing his face. Other than Old Master Yao, even Yao Guangyi wasn't willing to let him see his face. Did you hear anything? Old Master Yao turned to look at Yao Guangyi. Pardon my foolishness, but I really can't hear anything. Yao Guangyi lifted his head with a confused expression. He listened carefully. What the Imperial Army commander said were all extremely trivial matters, such as who came to the Four Quarters Embassy, what gifts they brought, who the Wang clan old master met, when did someone leave, who seemed intimate with someone. It was all superficial information. As for the specifics, there was nothing at all. Honestly speaking, to Yao Guangyi, this was completely useless information. Do you still not understand? Ha, that's right. Even I didn't expect that the person who schemed against you would be a 15-year-old child. Yao Guangyi shook his head. There was an indescribable emotion in his eyes. What? A child? Yao Guangyi widened his eyes in disbelief as he stared at his father. Tell me, who was the last person the king of Song, Li Qingqi, met? Wang Gengzhi's third son, Wang Chong. That's him. This child is the one you're looking for. Old Master Yao said slowly. His eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. Boom. As though a bolt of lightning flashing across his mind, Yao Guangyi widened his eyes in shock. Chapter 112. Even a magnitude 12 tsunami couldn't describe the shock in Yao Guangyi's heart. Being schemed against by the boarders was no different from a clown. Yao Guangyi had always thought that the Wang clan had received the help of an expert who saw through his plans. Because of this expert, Yao Guangyi couldn't eat or sleep in peace. One shouldn't be afraid of meeting a formidable opponent, but of not knowing who his opponent was. Thus, before finding this person, Yao Guangyi couldn't pull himself together. This was a knot in his heart. If he didn't resolve this problem, he would never be able to return to his previous self. Just that, no matter how smart Yao Guangyi was, he couldn't have imagined that his opponent, the incomparably formidable expert, in his heart, was a teenage child of the Wang clan, an unassuming profligate scion. How could an influential official of the royal court, Yao Guangyi, who prided himself on his intelligence, accept this? Father, how can you be so sure that the child is the one who schemed against me? Yao Guangyi asked. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't dare to doubt his father's words. However, this matter was simply too important to him. If he didn't resolve this knot in his heart, he would always be brooding over it. Ha, you still don't get it. Old Master Yao kept the wooden box on the table into his drawer. His expression was calm, as though he was talking about an insignificant matter that he already knew the answer to. Such a huge incident happened at the borders with the Wang clan, and the Wang clan produced a formidable expert. Do you think that the king of Song can sit still? Isn't he going to take a look? But, what if he already knew about it? Yao Guangyi asked. Old Master Yao shook his head. If it was the Yao Guangyi of the past, he would have already understood the situation upon hearing his words. However, the incident at the borders had dealt a blow to his confidence, and he no longer seemed like the wise general he used to be. Think about it carefully. If the Wang clan really has a powerful expert, if the king of Song really knew about it beforehand, do you think that your plan with King Qi would succeed? Do you think that you can still rope in so many people? Hong. Old Master Yao's voice was neither loud nor soft, and he spoke in a light and breezy manner. But in Yao Guangyi's ears, it was as if he had been enlightened. In that instant, it was as if there were countless rays of light and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. In the unseen world, many things that he couldn't understand before suddenly seemed to be made clear. So, the last person to see the King of Song during Duke Zhou's birthday banquet is the person we are looking for. Old Master Yao nodded his head in relief. Old Master Yao nodded his head in relief. Li Qingqi can be considered an intelligent person. Unfortunately, his cleverness is his own downfall. He wanted to protect that child, but he didn't know that he was the one who let us know who was behind this. Yao Guangyi sat there in a daze, not moving an inch. His eyes were cloudy, filled with confusion, fear, and confusion. But slowly, like a person who had fallen into a whirlpool, he slowly struggled to the surface, and his eyes slowly became clear. Moreover, there was something new struggling out from the bottom of his heart. The confused Yao Guangyi slowly disappeared and a confident and dignified Yao Guangyi slowly appeared in the room. I didn't expect it, I really didn't expect it. Back at the vast crane pavilion, I thought that it was just a coincidence. I didn't expect that it's actually him. Yao Guangyi said, I can't believe it a few times in succession. This matter really gave him too big of a surprise. Father, the Wang clan has never been known for its intelligence. Now that the Wang clan has produced this brat, he even schemed against me. This is definitely not a good thing. So, are you going to get rid of him? Old Master Yao turned around and said unhurriedly. Yao Guangyi was stunned. According to him, such a threatening existence had to be eliminated. Moreover, the sooner, the better. However, from what the old man said, it seemed like he didn't agree with him doing this. Father, you mean to keep him alive for now? Yao Guangyi was truly surprised. It's not a matter of staying or not. Old Master Yao stared deeply at Yao Guangyi. There seemed to be something else in his eyes. If you want to kill that child, even if the Wang clan seeks vengeance, even if Wang Bo pursues the matter, even if the Holy Emperor blames you, I can bear all of it for you. However, are you sure that you want to do this? The room was silent. Only the crackling of the oil lamp could be heard. Yao Guangyi sat there in a daze and fell into deep thought. Old Master Yao shook his head. The onlooker sees the situation clearly. This child still hadn't recovered from that defeat. Guangyi, do you think that the reason why our Yao clan is where it is today is through massacring our opponents? If we massacred every single one of them, what difference is there between us and those general clans? Old Master Yao said casually. Wang. Hearing these words, Yao Guangyi's body trembled. Not knowing what he was thinking, a layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. You still don't understand. The crux of this matter isn't that child but you. Do you know why you want to kill him? Because you are fearful. Old Master Yao narrowed his eyes. However, his gaze wasn't on Yao Guangyi. Instead, it was on the flickering oil lamp. Our Yao clan has been through many trials and tribulations, and there are many people more formidable than that child. Is Zhou Chang weaker than him? Is Li Yu weaker than him? Is Wang Gengji weaker than him? Out of so many people, we didn't kill any of them. But when we met this child, you wanted to kill him because you are afraid. Fearful. And your opponent is just a child. Yao Guangyi's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. With every sentence that old Master Yao spoke, a layer of cold sweat would appear on his forehead. When he heard the last sentence, Yao Guangyi's clothes were already drenched. Meeting an opponent isn't scary. Our Yao clan has never been afraid of meeting an opponent. If we really meet him, we just have to use schemes to defeat him. What we are afraid of is that you will lose the courage to use schemes to defeat him. Guangyi, think carefully. Do you really want to get rid of that child? The room was silent. A long while later, a long sigh could be heard. Father, I was wrong. It's not too late for you to understand. That child of the Wang clan must be gotten rid of, but not in this manner. Go, this consort Taizhen incident is your best opportunity. Use your wisdom to help the king of Qi regain his trust. After saying these words, old Master Yao closed his eyes. Yes, father. Yao Guangyi bowed and slowly and respectfully retreated out of the room. When he came, he was filled with worries. But when he left, it was as though a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. Wang Chong knew that regardless of whether it was the consort Taizhen incident or the regional commander's incident, it wasn't something that could be resolved within a short period of time. The turmoil in the royal court was bound to last for a very long time. However, all of this had nothing to do with him. After paying his respects to his grandfather, Wang Chang's life quickly returned to normal. Every day, he would head to the Ghost Tree district to play chess before practicing his martial arts. His life was rather regular. As for the second 7-chi long saber, the design of the thick, narrow, and thick-backed Wuzi steel saber, it had already been completed. Wang Chong had entrusted the initial work to Tuoba Gueyuan. As for the crucial quenching and tempering of the saber, Wang Chong would handle it personally when the time came. Origin Energy Tier 6. Perhaps it's time for me to choose some cultivation techniques that can boost my strength. While cultivating alone near the fake mountain in the garden, a thought suddenly flashed across Wang Chang's mind. It was Su Xian of the Su clan. Even though he had lost, Su Xian's fragrant elephant technique had left a deep impression on him. The Su clan was a duke of the Tang dynasty, and the martial arts bestowed upon them by the Holy Emperor back then was naturally extraordinary. Compared to the cultivation techniques of many general clans, the fragrant elephant technique was definitely one of the top-notch cultivation techniques that could boost one's strength. It was due to this cultivation technique that Su Xian was able to stand out among his peers in the capital. If he didn't use the Herculean punch technique and just relied on pure strength, Wang Chong might not be a match for Su Xian. Upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 6, one would be in a completely different world. Speed, strength, and dexterity, these were three different paths. Most people would subconsciously choose cultivation techniques that boosted their strength, and Wang Chong was no exception. However, it wasn't because Wang Chong chose the strength-type path for himself. Rather, it was because Wang Chong had no other choice. Origin Energy Tier 6 could only choose cultivation techniques that boosted one's strength. Wang Chong's mind whirred, and soon, he went through the cultivation techniques from his previous life. Wang Chong first filtered out the ordinary strength-type cultivation techniques. To Wang Chong, strength-type cultivation techniques had to at least reach the level of fragrant elephant technique, and it would be best if he could surpass it. I got it. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and he suddenly recalled an ultimate art. To Wang Chong, who eventually became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, this ultimate art wasn't much of a formidable technique. However, in the Origin Energy realm, this was definitely the fastest technique to boost one's strength. Might of the Barbaric God. This was the result of everyone's brainstorming. It was the fastest, strongest, and best cultivation technique to increase a cultivator's strength. It was also the most efficient. Back then, they were prepared to promote it among the warriors so as to allow the human warriors to stand against the otherworldly invaders and suppress them completely. If they succeeded, they might even be able to turn the tides of the war, allowing the otherworldly invaders to come from the other side. Due to this unexpected success, the generals of the Central Plains, including the elders, were excited for a very long time. But in the end, this plan was put on hold. The reason was simple. Even though Might of the Barbaric God was powerful and could boost one's strength by leaps and bounds, there was a huge flaw in it. One had to have a tiger bone, root bone in order to cultivate Might of the Barbaric God. This was due to the fact that most warriors weren't suited for it. Those who were truly suited for it were few and far between. On the other hand, raising one's root bone was an extremely long and arduous process. In the end, the entire plan failed. Chapter 113. I have already reached Origin Energy Tier 6, and my root bone has reached Panther Bone 3 Dan Pinnacle. However, it won't be easy for me to advance from Panther Bone 3 Dan to Tiger Bone Realm. Wang Chong thought. In the world of martial arts, there were many cultivation techniques that had a high requirement on one's root bone. The more formidable a cultivation technique was, the higher the requirement on one's root bone. If one's root bone wasn't up to par, it would be impossible for one to cultivate it. Given Wang Chang's current cultivation realm, it was impossible for him to reach the level of Tiger Bone. It's not impossible to raise my root bone to tiger bone, standing near the fake mountain, Wang Chong's mind word. There were things that could raise one's root bone within a short period of time, and the Su clan's bone-forging pill was one of them. Other than that, Wang Chong also knew of some methods to raise one's root bone. However, there weren't many that were suitable for him and could be put to practical use. I've got it. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and he suddenly recalled something. In the Central Plains, if one were to talk about the places with the most pills, it would undoubtedly be the royal palace and the various kings' residences. Especially in the imperial palace, there was a group of imperial alchemists who specialized in refining pills for the sacred emperor, the princes and princesses, as well as the concubines and concubines of the imperial court. There was a huge number of these alchemists, and they were strictly controlled by the royal family. The pills they forged would flow into the royal treasury and become the source of pills bestowed to the imperial army, kings, and officials. Every single one of these pills was strictly controlled, and they were even labeled with a serial number. Thus, it was rare for one to obtain them in the outside world. The other place where the pills were forged was the residences of the various kings. Every single king had a group of alchemists who forged pills for them. Some of these alchemists had come to the king's side, and some were bestowed by the royal family. The number of alchemists couldn't be compared to that of the royal family. Usually, there would only be a few of them, a dozen of them, or at most 20 of them. To the princes, these people were undoubtedly important strategic resources. Therefore, every prince consort took their alchemist team very seriously. They wouldn't easily let outsiders come into contact with them, let alone let their pills get out. Because of these exclusive alchemists of the imperial palace, almost every imperial prince was a top-notch expert. Whether it was the king of Song or king of Qi. The consumption of every single prince of the imperial family was a huge whole. In addition, the prince's mansion also had to bestow gifts to the guards, attendants, children, advisors. Therefore, the pills of any prince of the imperial family were far from enough. Therefore, although the imperial palace and the various kings' mansions had the most elixirs in storage, none of the elixirs were leaked out. To outsiders, the pills from these two places were unattainable and out of reach. However, Wang Chong knew of a secret way to obtain the pills that were circulating in those places. This was something that happened in his previous life. Back then, the great upheaval had destroyed the entire Central Plains. Due to the calamity, people from all walks of life were gathered together. Regardless of whether it was the lofty royal family, the boorish roving bandits, or the honest peasants. In a disaster, everyone was equal. In the face of death, everyone will become afraid. Due to fear, many things that one normally wouldn't talk about were no longer taboo. Instead, they became a way to release one's stress and fear. It was there that Wang Chong met a distressed alchemist. It was from him that Wang Chong learned that there was a secret faction among the alchemists of the royal family and the king's mansions. They would make false reports, conceal the pills they had forged, and then secretly sell them outside the royal family and the king's mansions in order to profit from it. This kind of private behavior by the imperial family and the royal family's alchemists had actually happened in every dynasty, and the current dynasty was no exception. But even so, this didn't mean that outsiders could easily buy their pills or join this small group. Alchemists concealing the number of pills, or making false reports, whether it was in the imperial palace or the various kings' mansions, were strictly prohibited. In order to serve as a warning to others, they would generally be severely punished. As this was a matter of life and death, the alchemist kept this matter a secret. Furthermore, it was extremely secretive, making it difficult for outsiders to join their faction. If not for that great upheaval, it would have been impossible for someone like Wang Chong to know of the existence of the alchemist faction. Falling Jade Pavilion. Wang Chong quickly recalled the place that the alchemist told him about. It was a secret residence that the alchemist bought. Even though it looked ordinary on the surface, it was actually a secret gathering point for the alchemist faction. There were many such gathering points in the capital. Every single gathering point had an alchemist in charge of it. If a problem were to arise in a gathering point, they would quickly abandon it so as to protect the entire alchemist faction. The reason why Wang Chong remembered it was because there was a unique alchemist in the Falling Jade Pavilion. If Wang Chong wanted to join the faction and purchase pills, this alchemist was his only chance. Let's go take a look. With a thought, Wang Chong summoned Shanhai and Meng Long, boarded a carriage, and headed for the Falling Jade Pavilion. The Falling Jade Pavilion wasn't a tavern or a tea house. Rather, it was a private residence located at the edge of the capital, and it stood amidst the many single-story houses. How deserted! Shanhai and Wang Chong popped their heads out of the carriage to look at the house not too far away. The vermilion gate and the mottled walls were tightly shut, and there wasn't the slightest sound of dogs barking. It seemed as though it had been abandoned for a very long time. Young master, are you certain that this is the place? It doesn't seem like there's anyone here. Shanhai turned to look at his young master and asked. The surroundings of the residence were shabby, and it gave off a bad vibe. Don't worry, this is the place. Wang Chong recalled the anecdotes that the alchemist told him back then. Opening his eyes, he looked at the mottled plaque on the entrance of the residence with the words Falling Jade Pavilion written on it and nodded his head seriously. It was naturally impossible for an alchemist to steal and sell pills from the imperial palace and king residences in broad daylight. This residence seemed deserted, but it was in line with the style of an alchemist. I wonder if there's anyone in this residence. Wang Chong thought. The alchemists in the royal palace and the king's residences were extremely busy, and there was no rest to speak of in the midst of pill forging. Thus, these strongholds were truly deserted most of the time. Only when there was a need every month would the alchemist appear here to carry out all sorts of transactions or exchanges. Falling Jade Pavilion was definitely the place, but whether there was anyone inside or not, and whether this was the time for them to carry out their transactions or meet up, Wang Chong couldn't be too sure. Pang! Just as he was hesitating, the door suddenly opened. 5 figures lowered their heads and subconsciously covered their faces as they walked out quickly from inside. Even from afar, the 3 of them could smell the strong scent of pills on the 5 figures. It's the alchemist. The same thought flashed through the minds of the 3 of them. Young master, which one? Shanhai and Meng Long turned to look at Wang Chong. Wang Chong said that he wanted them to follow an alchemist, but there were 5 of them here, and even if each of them took one, it would still be far from enough. Wang Chong also frowned anxiously. These people were very alert. As they walked, they subconsciously sized up their surroundings, harboring a strong sense of vigilance. Moreover, they were walking very fast, giving off the feeling that they were in a hurry and were in a hurry. If he didn't find the person in his memories soon, these people would probably leave. Which one? Which one? Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. Alchemists were all extremely wary of one another. Under normal circumstances, no matter what methods one used, they would never accept one. In fact, it would be hard for one to even get close to them. The moment one felt that something was amiss, they might make use of the might of the king's estate or the royal palace to deal with one. This was something that the alchemist reminded him time and time again. The moment one was noticed by an alchemist or sensed danger, that person would immediately report it to the entire alchemist society. At that time, it would no longer be this secret alchemist society dealing with one. Instead, it would be all the alchemists in the royal palace and the king's mansions dealing with one. If the royal family or the royal family knew that someone was trying to harm their royal alchemist or the alchemist in the king's mansion, then there would be a series of troubles. It would be a small matter if the guards came out. Next, it would be the princes and princesses, or the young princes and princesses of the king's mansions. Once an alchemist was involved, it would be no small matter. Therefore, if Wang Chong wanted to get in touch with the alchemist in the royal palace and king's mansions, he wouldn't have much of a chance. The 5 alchemists walked very quickly. Just as Wang Chong was hesitating, they had almost reached the edge. Creak. Just as Wang Chong was hesitating, the door suddenly creaked open. Behind the 5 alchemists, another middle-aged man wearing green satin walked out. He looked a little strange. He looked outside and immediately walked toward the east side of the street. Unlike the others, he walked very slowly. He looked relaxed and not that nervous. That's him. Seeing the middle-aged man's hand in his sleeve, Wang Chong's mind flashed. He suddenly knew who he was looking for. Liu Zhizhang. This was the alchemist that Wang Chong was looking for. The dragon has 9 sons, each different. Most of the members of the secret alchemist society were extremely vigilant, careful, and vigilant. It was almost impossible to get close to them, let alone make friends with them. However, this kind of thing was not absolute. There would always be some people who could be taken advantage of. This Liu Zhizhang was the opportunity that Wang Chong had learned from the alchemist. This alchemist's real name was Zhang Zhongshu. Liu Zhizhang was his nickname. Although he looked normal, everyone in the alchemist society knew that he had 6 fingers on his right hand. When he was young, because he was addicted to gambling, he owed a loan shark and had one of his fingers chopped off. However, because he was born with 6 fingers on his right hand, he still had 5 after one of his fingers was chopped off. Therefore, he looked like an ordinary person. This secret was not known to outsiders, but Liu Zhizhang himself knew. Therefore, when he walked, sat, or lay down, his right hand would be curled up into his sleeve. He did not want others to see it. Chapter 114. Back then, that alchemist had told Wang Chong many interesting anecdotes about the art of alchemy. The reason why Wang Chong paid attention to this Liu Zhizhang was because of something he was about to do a few years later. Due to the fact that life in the royal palace was extremely boring, especially when it came to alchemy, Liu Zhizhang's gambling addiction worsened after he became an alchemist. Eventually, it got out of hand, and a few years later, he owed a sky-high loan. In order to repay the debt, Liu Zhizhang actually lowered the threshold and took the initiative to introduce a magnanimous merchant from the capital into the secret organization of the alchemist. Smuggling alchemist pills from the royal palace and king's residences was supposed to be an extremely secretive matter. No outsider could ever find out about it. However, that magnanimous merchant wasn't someone who could keep a secret. Later on, because of this magnanimous merchant, the matter of the alchemist secretly smuggling pills was finally exposed. In the end, it directly led to the death of this alchemist. From this point of view, this Liu Zhizhang was actually a pitiful person. This was because his future had already been decided if Wang Chong didn't intervene. It's a pity that it isn't a few years later yet. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to go through so much trouble and could easily enter the secret organization of the alchemist. Wang Chong thought to himself as he looked at the slowly walking Liu Zhizhang through the window of the carriage. The secret organization of the alchemist was known for its high vigilance and high threshold, making it difficult to enter. If it was a few years later, when that incident happened, Wang Chong only needed to replace that magnanimous merchant and fork out a sum of money to easily squeeze into the organization, obtaining an endless supply of pills. However, all of this had yet to happen. Liu Zhizhang might not be as easy to talk to as he was in his previous life, and he might not be able to provide such a good opportunity to Wang Chong. But at this moment, Wang Chong did not have much choice. Among all the alchemists, this Liu Zhizhang was undoubtedly the easiest to acquire. If Wang Chong wanted to raise his bone frame to tiger bone rank in a short time, this was his only chance. The earlier he could join the alchemist's secret organization, the earlier Wang Chong could obtain a steady supply of pills. Even if it wasn't for the Herculean force, Wang Chong was determined to get the alchemist's secret organization. The earlier they entered, the earlier they would obtain substantial benefits. Whether or not we can form this alchemist's secret society will depend on this. A thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind. He quickly opened the carriage door and walked out. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong caught up with Liu Zhizhang. Taoist teacher, this junior pays his respects. In front of Liu Zhizhang, Wang Chong stopped and bowed with a smile. Wang. Upon hearing the word Taoist, Six-Fingered Zhang, who was still lazing around a moment ago, felt as though he had been stabbed. In an instant, his face warped in shock. Who are you? What do you want? Liu Zhizhang seemed to have turned into an entirely different person. His eyes narrowed and his entire body tensed up. He resembled a fully drawn bow that was in a state of charging. He exuded intense hostility and wariness toward Wang Chong, as though he would make a move if Wang Chong were to say a single wrong word. Taoist teacher, Taoist teacher. In the Central Plains, as long as an outsider met an alchemist, they would respectfully address him as Taoist teacher. To Liu Zhizhang, a single sentence from Wang Chong had revealed too much information. Liu Zhizhang's instinctive reaction was that the matter of him secretly smuggling pills from the royal palace and the Wang residence had been exposed. It's indeed hard to get close to these alchemist organizations. Wang Chong's face warped. Of all the alchemists, Liu Zhizhang could be considered as the easiest to deal with. However, upon hearing the word Taoist teacher, his face warped. Just like the other alchemists, he was extremely wary of him, making it hard for him to get close to him. Taoist teacher, there's no need to misunderstand. I am Wang Chong, and I don't have any other intentions. I just wish to request a pill from the alchemist. Wang Chong smiled. How do you know that I am a Taoist teacher? Liu Zhizhang ignored Wang Chong's words and stared at the word Taoist teacher. He really wanted to know how Wang Chong discovered his identity. Hee, my nose isn't damaged. How could I not recognize you, Taoist teacher? Wang Chong smiled and made a sniffing gesture. Liu Zhizhang's face changed. He grabbed his sleeves and sniffed hard. Sure enough, he smelled a strong smell of pills. Alchemists had been dealing with alchemy furnaces and pills for a long time, so this smell couldn't escape. I see. Liu Zhizhang felt relieved and his face looked much better. Say no more. I won't concoct pills for you. Six-Fingered Zhang had a cold expression on his face, as if he was 1,000 miles away from him. Realizing that Wang Chong didn't find out that they were secretly peddling pills from the Imperial Palace and Wang residence, Liu Zhizhang wasn't as vigilant as before. After Liu Zhizhang said this, he ignored Wang Chong and got up to leave. Taoist teacher, please wait. Whether you are willing or not, I have a gift for you. Gift? You are just a kid. What gift can you give me? Liu Zhizhang snorted and snorted. Taoist teacher, take a look and you will know. Wang Chong smiled and gestured to the person behind him. Shanhai carried a brocade box that he had prepared in advance and brought it over. Deliberately mystifying, Liu Zhizhang opened the brocade box and scolded with a face full of disdain. But the next moment, when he saw the golden radiance coming from the brocade box, Liu Zhizhang was stunned and couldn't say a word. Gold, there was at least 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels. Liu Zhizhang stared at Wang Chong in shock, as though this was the first time he had met the other party. 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels wasn't something a child could take out casually. Taoist teacher, this is a small token of my appreciation. I hope that you can accept it. After saying those words, before Six-Fingered Zhang could react, Wang Chong immediately led Shanhai and Meng Long back to where they came from. Entering the carriage, they disappeared into the streets. Leaving Liu Zhizhang standing on the streets with 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels in his hands, he was stunned speechless. What in the world is going on? Liu Zhizhang stared at the back view of Wang Chong's carriage in bewilderment. He had never seen such a situation before. Without saying anything or receiving anything, he left 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels and left without saying a word. There are weird things every year, but this year, there are especially many. Since someone is giving me gold, do you think that I wouldn't dare to accept it? A hint of greed flashed across Liu Zhang's eyes as he kept the gold tails given by Wang Chong. The reason why he risked his life to smuggle pills from the royal palace and the various kings' residences was all for the sake of profit. If someone was giving him gold for free, why wouldn't he accept it? It's been a long time since I went to the gambling den. This amount of gold is more than enough for me to spend. Liu Zhang flagged down a carriage and headed straight for the gambling den. Young master, since you wanted to give him gold, why didn't you give him a little more? At the same time, Shanhai looked at his young master with a perplexed expression. The young master had always been extravagant, spending 1,000 gold taels to buy a horse's bones. A few thousand gold taels to 10,000 gold taels meant nothing to him. Previously, for the Hyderabad ores, the young master paid Ablanadin and Arloja an extra 10,000 gold taels. Now that he was facing an alchemist, he shouldn't be so stingy. 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels wasn't his style. I'm willing to give him 10,000 gold taels, but he has to accept it first. Doesn't that mean that we have ulterior motives for him? Wang Chong chuckled. The two of them were stunned for a moment. Wang Chong chuckled and didn't say anything. Liu Zhang was a unique group of alchemists, and they were extremely cautious and wary. It wasn't an easy task to infiltrate their ranks. It was fine as long as he left a good impression on them. Otherwise, going too far would be as bad as falling short. Meng Long, the information I wanted you to gather. Did you manage to get it? Wang Chong asked all of a sudden. I got it. Meng Long nodded his head. He flipped open a scroll and passed it over. There are a total of 6 gambling dens in the vicinity of the Falling Jade Pavilion. 3 of them are small, 2 of them are medium, and the last one is the largest. What's the name of the largest gambling den? Wang Chong didn't take the scroll. Golden Sky Great Gambling Den. Meng Long said. Golden Sky Great Gambling Den, Wang Chong frowned. He had some impression of this place. It seemed to be a gambling den controlled by the Gogurians. In his previous life, Wang Chong was extremely curious as to what kind of person could force the esteemed alchemist to such an extent, going against the rules and introducing a wealthy merchant into his organization. If not for some special reason, Liu Zhang wouldn't have taken such a huge risk. However, if the other party was the Gogurians, then everything could be explained. The Gogurians were the typical outlaws. They were vicious, aggressive, and fearless. Liu Zhang's identity as an alchemist might be effective on others, but it might not be effective on these outlaws. In the circle of scions that Wang Chong used to hang out with, everyone knew that one could go anywhere as long as one didn't go to the wineries, gambling dens, teahouses, and brothels controlled by the Gogurians. It wasn't just because the Gogurians were vicious, aggressive, and unruly. More importantly, they had connections with another fearsome faction in the Tang dynasty, the Gogurian Warrior Organization, or Gogurian Assassin Organization. It was common sense not to get involved with the Gogurians. But clearly, Liu Zhang was an alchemist, and he didn't know much about it. As an alchemist in the royal palace and king's residences, he would always choose the most luxurious locations. Without even thinking, Wang Chong was certain that Liu Zhang would choose the Golden Sky Great Gambling Den, and it just so happened to be a gambling den controlled by the Gogurians. Shanhai and Meng Long, follow him for the next few days. I will have Ablanadin and Arloja assist you. If he's in danger, save him. No matter what, don't let him get hurt. While contemplating, Wang Chong tapped on the window lightly with his right index finger and said, also, there's 20,000 gold taels in the carriage. If the situation is urgent and you need money, pass it to the alchemist. If it's insufficient, you can have Ablanadin come to the residence to take more. There's no limit to the amount. Ah! Upon hearing that there was no limit to the amount, Shanhai and Meng Long were astonished. They knew that the young master wouldn't fall in love with anyone easily, and those who caught his eye were usually extraordinary. However, they didn't expect that Wang Chong would place such importance on the alchemist. Yes, young master. We'll definitely accomplish our mission. The duo lowered their heads and replied. Bring your tokens with you. Show them when necessary to avoid trouble. Go. Wang Chong waved his hands. Troublesome people were always like magnets that attracted trouble. A gambling addict, an alchemist, and a gambling den controlled by a Goguryeo. At this moment, Wang Chong could already see a conflict not too far away. Wang Chong knew that with his cultivation realm, there was no need for him to get involved in this conflict. It was sufficient for Shanhai, Menglong, Ablonodon, and Arloja to take his place. Chapter 115. Initially, Wang Chong thought that it would take at least a few days for him to make any progress on Liu Zhang's matter. However, Wang Chong underestimated Liu Zhang's brazenness on the gambling table, as well as the other party's confidence in his identity as an alchemist. That very night, Liu Zhang was assaulted. Even though he possessed extraordinary attainments in the way of pill, the higher one's cultivation in the way of pill, the harsher one's life became. As such, Liu Zhang became increasingly brazen on the gambling table. That very night, Liu Zhang was assaulted by the Goguryans. Those people used some extreme means, such as explosives, knockout powder, knockout grenades, and even lime. If not for Shanhai and Menglong arriving with Ablonodon and Arloja, Liu Zhang would have been stabbed a few times and his hand would have been chopped off. The Goguryans were known for their viciousness and cruelty in the capital. However, this matter was something that Liu Zhang asked for. He only had 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels on him, but he actually dared to borrow 20,000 gold taels from the Golden Sky Casino. Adding on the previous debt, he actually owed the Golden Sky Casino more than 50,000 gold taels. His guts sure were plentiful. Liu Zhang had borrowed 20,000 gold taels from the casino earlier in the day, and according to the agreement, he would return the debt by 4:45 in the afternoon. However, Liu Zhangji had been drinking in the casino, and he had forgotten about the matter completely. This infuriated the Goguryans. Have you paid off all the gambling money for him? Behind the study table, Wang Chong asked. Reporting to young master, according to young master's instructions, we have already paid up for him. After paying up for him, we left. We didn't interact much with him. Shanhai and Menglong replied. After helping the other party so greatly, Liu Zhangji casually gave him 50,000 gold taels without asking for anything at all. This was truly incomprehensible to the both of them. However, this was the young master's decision, so they weren't in a position to comment on it. Very good. From tomorrow onwards, send him 2,000 taels of gold every day. Other than that, don't say anything else. Wang Chong said. Yes, young master. Shanhai and Menglong replied. Nearly 50,000 gold taels had been given away, but he had not received anything in return. If it was someone else, they would definitely not do it. However, Wang Chong didn't care at all. In the secret community of alchemists, there was a huge profit to be made. However, the threshold was also unusually high. The customers they sold to were often people who had been around for decades, or even longer. Due to the long period of time, this kind of relationship could be tested. Moreover, the alchemist was extremely cautious when it came to choosing new clients. Often, they might not even choose one in a few decades. It was precisely because of this cautious and strict attitude that the secret group of the alchemist was able to maintain its secrecy outside of the royal palace and the various kings' residences. To Wang Chong, as long as he was able to come into contact with this group, as long as he could squeeze into their group and purchase a steady stream of precious pills, it was no longer important for him to give away the 50,000 gold taels. Given that Liu Zhang was still wary of him, it was still too early to talk to him about joining the alchemist group. What Wang Chong was doing now was to continuously give him gold taels. Through this method, he would be able to increase the other party's goodwill toward him. One day, when Liu Zhang was no longer wary of him, Wang Chong believed that he would come looking for him. After making the arrangements, Wang Chong continued to cultivate his dragon bone art in peace. Days passed and Wang Chong's strength grew by the day. Even though he hadn't achieved a breakthrough in his root bone, it was becoming denser with each passing day. 3 days passed in a flash. Even though Wang Chong's dragon bone art hadn't progressed much, there was an unexpected change on Shanhai and Meng Long's side. "Young master, Liu Zhizhang seeks an audience with you." This time, he took the initiative to look for us and indicated that he wishes to meet you. Wang Chong was cultivating in the courtyard when Shanhai and Meng Long suddenly walked over. "Oh." Wang Chong's eyes lit up in surprise. Liu Zhizhang seemed to be even more impatient than he had imagined. "Let him in." Wang Chong met Liu Zhizhang in his study. Compared to Liu Zhizhang a few days ago, the current Liu Zhizhang didn't seem as aloof, arrogant, and unapproachable as before. However, Wang Chong could sense deep doubt and unease from him. "Zhang Zhongshu pays respect to Gongzi." Liu Zhizhang bowed, looking a little uneasy. Honestly speaking, the identity of an alchemist allowed him to make a name for himself anywhere. Thus, most alchemists would be arrogant before others. Just that, Zhang Zhongshu didn't expect the person who pestered him in front of the falling jade pavilion to have such a powerful background. Even though the identity of an alchemist wasn't bad, it was nothing compared to the Wang clan. "Hee, master, we meet again." Wang Chong chuckled. Glancing at Liu Zhizhang's left hand, Wang Chong saw a massive sword wound protruding from the latter's sleeve. It seemed to be the wound he suffered from the Gogurians not too long ago. "Gongzi, don't make fun of me." "What, master?" "If I knew that you're Duke Zhou's grandson, I wouldn't dare to slight you." Liu Zhizhang said uneasily. "Hee, master, you're being too polite. May I know what business you have with me?" Wang Chong turned to look at Liu Zhizhang with a smile. "Gongzi, you're being too polite. I'm here to thank Gongzi. Gongzi has saved my life and helped me pay off my debt of 50,000 gold taels. I'm deeply grateful for your help. However, if Gongzi wishes to request for a few pills from me, please forgive me for being unable to do so. As for the 50,000 gold taels, I'm unable to pay it off for the time being. However, if Gongzi wants it, I'll try my best to return it to Gongzi." Liu Zhizhang lowered his head uneasily. Hee, who said that I want to request for a few pills from you?" Wang Chong chuckled. "Isn't that so?" Taken aback, Liu Zhizhang abruptly lifted his head in surprise. All along, he thought that the reason why Wang Chong helped him so much was so that he could forge pills for him. As such, he had been feeling uneasy. He was the alchemist of the royal palace. If he were to forge pills for others outside, he would surely be severely punished. Thus, this was the reason why he was feeling uneasy. However, it was rare for a generous person like Wang Chong to give away 50,000 gold taels without asking for the reason. This was something that Liu Zhizhang rarely met. He couldn't bear to part with it just like that. Thus, he decided to meet the Wang family. However, from the looks of it now, the truth was completely different from what he had imagined. "Master, pills flow for 1,000 years, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns. I would like to take a look. I wonder if master can help me take a look." Wang Chong smiled. "Hua." The previously calm Liu Zhizhang's expression changed abruptly. You. How did you know?" Six-fingered Zhang stared at Wang Chong in shock. It was as if the deepest secret in his heart had been seen through. Pills flow for 1,000 autumns, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns. This was a couplet in the royal palace. It was the origin of everything, and also the secret code for the alchemist to incite each other. The secret organization of the alchemist, this was the deepest secret in Liu Zhizhang's heart. He never expected that Wang Chong would be able to see through it. His relationship with Wang Chong had always been as an ordinary alchemist. He had always believed that this was what Wang Chong was thinking, but he hadn't expected Wang Chong to see through him so early on. This made Liu Zhizhang tremble with fear. Master, there's no need to be surprised. If I wanted to leak it, I would have done so long ago. Why would I wait until now? Wang Chong smiled. He picked up the teapot on the table, poured a cup of fragrant tea, and pushed it over. No matter what he did, the secret organization of the alchemist, as long as he mentioned it, it would cause a backlash. The fact that Liu Zhizhang was able to stay here and not rush out was already beyond his expectations. Since Gongzi knows about pills flow for 1,000 autumns, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns, you should know the danger of this matter. Isn't Gongzi afraid of bringing trouble to the family? Liu Zhizhang took a deep breath and raised his head. When he first came in, his face was still cramped, restrained, and uneasy. But when Wang Chong mentioned the words pills flow for 1,000 autumns, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns, his entire person changed, as if this was his true appearance. There was no longer a trace of uneasiness or fear. Hearing Liu Zhizhang's words, Wang Chong immediately became silent. The pills refined in the royal palace and the royal residences had always been a taboo. It was definitely not a good thing to be involved with the alchemist organization that smuggled pills. It was very possible that it would bring a lot of trouble to the Wang family, anger the royal palace, and attract the hostility of the royal princes. For a few pills, it was really not worth it. Under normal circumstances, even if Wang Chong knew that there was such a secret alchemist organization, he would definitely not do it. But Wang Chong was well aware that a calamity was about to descend. In this catastrophe, everything would fall apart. The royal palace, the royal residences, the laws, the family, everything that was precious would be scorched to the ground. In this catastrophe, it was most important to strengthen himself as much as possible and protect others. As for the danger that might arise from being involved with the alchemist organization in the royal palace and the royal residences, it was not within Wang Chong's consideration. I have my own considerations on this matter. Master need not worry too much. Master, please lead me into the sect. Wang Chong raised his head and smiled lightly. This time, it was Liu Zhizhang who was silent. His original intention was to make Wang Chong back off. Unexpectedly, Wang Chong's willpower was even stronger than his. It was as if Wang Chong had made up his mind to enter his group. If it was any other time, Liu Zhizhang would definitely not agree. He would not even consider it. But Wang Chong had once helped him, and he already knew of their existence. Liu Zhizhang could not pretend not to know. Chapter 116. I really don't understand Gongzi, why do you insist on joining us? Given the Wang clan's identity and status, this risk is simply too great. Liu Zhizhang took in a deep breath. For someone like Wang Chong who knew of the alchemist's secret, he had no choice but to let him go. Since he couldn't kill him, he could only think of a way to recruit him. Even though the alchemist's secret organization rarely opened to strangers and rarely accepted outsiders, it wasn't as if there was no chance at all. Gongzi, if you insist on joining us, there's nothing I can do. If you just want to obtain some pills, there's a chance right now. However, the price is too high. You can consider it yourself. Liu Zhizhang sighed. What chance? Speak. Wang Chong's eyes lit up and he blurted out. It wasn't in vain that he had spent so much time. There was still a chance. The alchemist organizations in the royal palace and the various kings' residences have always had some quotas for outsiders. These quotas can't be considered as true buyers, nor can they be considered as members of our organization. At most, they can only be considered as external partners. These partners are known as shadows. The number of shadows has always been fixed, but recently, there has been a vacancy. I can find a way to apply for you. However, the price of each shadow is too high, and it might be beyond your imagination. Are you sure that you really need them? Liu Zhizhang said with uncertainty. How much does it cost to become a shadow? Wang Chong asked. 200,000. Gold. Liu Zhang said seriously. Upon hearing those words, even Wang Chang's expression changed slightly. He knew that the threshold to enter the alchemist's organization was very high, but Wang Chong didn't expect it to be this high. 200,000 gold was an unbearable price for the majority of powers, even the great clans. For many people, even if the alchemist was willing to recruit them, they might not be able to afford the price of 200,000 gold taels. If Wang Chong had not discovered the business opportunity in Hyderabad and made a fortune from it, even if he had known about the alchemist's secret organization and the existence of Liu Zhang, he would not have been able to make use of it. This was not something that ordinary people could come into contact with or use. These groups were formed by the alchemist of the imperial palace and the king's mansions. The threshold was so high that it was enough to make many people flinch. Furthermore, this 200,000 is only a qualification, not the price of the pill. If you need to buy medicinal pills, you'll have to pay extra. Liu Zhang's voice traveled into his ears. Moreover, the price of the elixir purchased with the identity of the dark shadow far exceeds the true price of the elixir. Even so, will you consider it? But in a year, they couldn't purchase less than 6 pills. Otherwise, they would be disqualified. The first reason was to limit the number of pills a shadow could purchase. The second was to test the financial strength of a shadow. If a shadow couldn't even purchase 6 pills a year, he would be disqualified. I've finally succeeded. Nearly 300,000 gold taels in exchange for such a small token. Wang Chong thought to himself as he looked at the purple gold token in front of him. It was 2 fingers wide and exquisitely made. On one side of the token, there was a picture of a purple alchemy fire, accompanied by some black shadows. This was the symbol of the shadow. In his previous life, although Wang Chong had heard of this secret organization, this was the first time he had come into contact with it. Furthermore, he was only an outer member and could be disqualified at any time. The alchemist organization's threshold was so high and the vetting was so strict that it made one's hair stand on end. Luckily, it's not like I've gained nothing. In the study, Wang Chang's gaze shifted to a brocade box on the table. A thick fragrance of pills wafted out from the box. It was different from the body-tempering pills and bone-tempering pills that Wang Chong had swallowed before. This fragrance was incomparably thick. Furthermore, if one looked closely, they could even see traces of purple mist coming out from the box. These pills lingered around the box but didn't dissipate. Tiger Bone Small Rejuvenating Pill. Even in his previous life, it was a famous and well-known name. Other than the top alchemist in the royal palace and the king's residences, it would be very difficult to find it anywhere else. Bang! Wang Chong opened the brocade box and took out a round pill that was emitting a purple aura. With a grunt, he swallowed it. In an instant, a strong wind blew in the study. The roar of a ferocious tiger could be heard faintly in the air. After that, everything returned to silence. After an unknown period of time, a series of crackling sounds erupted from within Wang Chong's body. I've finally succeeded. Wang Chong suddenly stood up from the ground. His eyes opened wide, emitting a shocking ray of light. An aura that was much stronger than before burst out from his body. This aura was fierce, violent, dignified, and arrogant, like a ferocious tiger that was waiting to pounce. Tiger Bone Level. Once one's root bone was upgraded to this level, one's strength and endurance would be greatly improved. It would no longer be like the panther bone level. Although a single thrust was extremely fast, it could quickly deplete a martial artist's energy. A tiger's pursuit would never stop after 100 meters. It would continue to pursue relentlessly. Although a tiger bone level martial artist was still not comparable to a real ferocious tiger, and their bones were not as sturdy, it was still a great improvement. Wang Chong could feel that his body was filled with energy. Compared to before, it had obviously increased by quite a bit. Now, I can finally start cultivating the force of the barbaric god. Wang Chong let out a long sigh of relief in his heart. Although it was only the most basic, tiger bone level 1, it was enough for Wang Chong to cultivate the force of the barbaric god. The mental cultivation method of the force of the barbaric god flashed across Wang Chong's mind. Then, he sat down with his legs crossed and remained motionless. This was the first step of the force of the barbaric god, called qi kneading. While Wang Chong was concentrating on cultivating the force of the barbaric god, in the imperial court of the Tang dynasty, the matter of consort Taizhen had become a hot topic. Almost all the civil and military officials were involved. No. No matter what. I must stop His Majesty. Early in the morning, the King of Song slammed his palm on the table and stood up abruptly. The matter of consort Taizhen had reached the most critical moment. However, the development in the imperial court had exceeded the King of Song's expectation. Despite the remonstrations from so many officials and the numerous letters, His Majesty seemed to have made up his mind and completely ignored their advice. In the main hall, whenever an official remonstrated, the Holy Emperor's face would turn livid and frighteningly ugly. On the matter of consort Taizhen, the Holy Emperor had displayed an extraordinarily firm attitude. This had never happened before. In the past, although His Majesty had disagreed, he would never express his stance easily. However, this time, things seemed to be completely different. Lu Ting, get ready. During the morning court session, help me contact the other officials. We will submit a joint letter together. No matter what, we must persuade His Majesty to change his mind. Yes, Your Highness. Lu Ting responded, but his eyes were filled with worry. The current situation in the imperial court was becoming more and more disadvantageous to the King of Song, but the King of Song seemed to be unaware of it. The matter of consort Taizhen was related to the official's reputation and integrity. On this point, even Lu Ting could not persuade him. The imperial edict has arrived. Just as the King of Song was neatly dressed and preparing to enter the palace to attend the morning court session, something strange happened. Just as the King of Song walked to the door, an extremely sharp voice suddenly came from outside. In the blink of an eye, a middle-aged eunuch with a pale face and gray hair, dressed like a palace eunuch with an indescribable feminine aura walked in from outside, holding a golden scroll in his hand. As the middle-aged eunuch walked in, he cast a sidelong glance at the King of Song, his eyes sinister and cold. Eunuch you. Seeing this eunuch, the King of Song's expression changed, and he immediately bowed. The King of Song, hear the imperial edict. In accordance with the will of the heavens, the imperial edict states, the King of Song is worried about national affairs and has overworked himself. He is hereby ordered to rest at home. There is no need for him to attend today's morning court session. End of the imperial edict. Rumble. Chapter 117. Whoosh. A gust of wind blew past. Dark clouds hung low in the sky, and it was dark. The King of Song's mood was as gloomy as the dark clouds above his head. Recuperate at home was a simple phrase, but it was a chasm that stood between him and the imperial court. This was not an order, nor did it say that he had done anything wrong. It was just a kind and concerned advice that excluded him from the court. The emperor's decree cannot be disobeyed. No matter how much preparation he had made and how many plans he had made, they were all for naught at this moment. I didn't expect. The King of Song clenched his fists and slowly closed his eyes. His heart was cold. He had been in the court for more than 20 years, and the emperor and his officials knew each other well. However, this was the first time that the King of Song had encountered such an imperial edict. The content of the imperial edict was simple, without any unnecessary embellishments. From this imperial edict, the King of Song felt a chill. The Holy Emperor had clearly expressed his attitude in this way. The King of Song, receive the imperial edict. Eunuch Yu raised the imperial edict high and looked at the King of Song coldly. Yes. Thank you, Eunuch Yu. The King of Song respectfully received the imperial edict from Eunuch Yu. Holding the imperial edict in his hand, the King of Song sat in the main hall for a whole day and a days. The King of Song received the imperial edict. Eunuch Yu smiled coldly and handed over the imperial edict in his hand. This was the second day that the King of Song had received such an imperial edict. The content had not changed a single word. The third day. The fourth day. In the beginning, the King of Song was still ambitious. He wanted to contact the officials and make a big move in the court to stop the Holy Emperor. However, after several days, the King of Song's heart had turned cold. "Your Highness, this is not good." Lu Ting stood by his side, looking worried. "This is already the 5th day. His Majesty seems to be determined not to let you attend court. Without you in charge of the Ministry of Justice, the Imperial Court, and the Ministry of War, the current situation is very bad. It's still fine in the Royal Court. There's Lord Wang Zhen to oversee the proceedings. However, there were a lot of trivial matters in the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of War that needed someone to take care of. In His Imperial Highness's absence, someone else would automatically take over His Imperial Highness's responsibilities. At present, the Prince of Qi's side was already making large movements, dispatching someone to take over His Imperial Highness's responsibilities. If this continues, Your Highness will slowly be ostracized by Prince Qi. Although the King of Song couldn't attend court, Lu Ting could. However, he was merely a grand scholar and had no real power in the imperial court. In this regard, he could only watch and worry helplessly. "I know." The King of Song sat alone in the main hall, looking absent-minded. The real situation was far worse than what Lu Ting had described. The King of Song knew that His Majesty was using this method to slowly ostracize him from the imperial court. This was different from any other time. This time, the King of Song felt a cold and hard heart. In his 20-odd years of being a politician, this was the first time the King of Song had lost his power in the imperial court. The imperial edict has arrived. Eunuch Yu held the imperial edict in his hands and strode forward with his head held high. His signature mocking smile hung on his lips as he arrived as promised. "By the will of the heavens," the Emperor declares, "the King of Song has overworked himself by worrying about the affairs of the nation. He is hereby ordered to rest at home and not to attend court without my decree. Hereby." Rumble. Hearing this, the expressions of the King of Song and Lu Ting changed drastically. This imperial edict was almost identical to the one before, just that a few words were added, "not to attend court without my decree." It was just a few simple words, but the meaning was completely different from before. How could this be? Lu Ting widened his eyes and looked at Eunuch Yu in shock. As expected, as expected. I knew it would be like this. I knew it would be like this. The King of Song's heart turned cold, as if he had received a huge blow. Without Jin's decree, he is not allowed to attend the court. These simple words were the harshest blow to King Song. Although the edict did not point out the fault of the King of Song, nor did it strip him of his title, these few simple words were equivalent to effectively expelling the King of Song from the imperial court. From now on, without the Holy Emperor's decree, the King of Song was not allowed to attend court. Not to mention participate in the imperial court. Your Highness, receive the edict. Eunuch Yu's face was pale. He held the imperial edict with one hand and handed it over with a mocking smile. A eunuch in the palace actually dared to mock a prince of the royal family. This was more than just audacious. If not for the Holy Emperor's decree, how would he dare to do this? Thank you, Eunuch Yu. The King of Song's face was ashen as he respectfully received the imperial edict from Eunuch Yu's hands. Your Highness, the King of Song, forgive me for speaking out of turn, but regarding the matter of consort Tai Zhen, you're on your own. Eunuch Yu said this with a sneer, then turned around and left. If the master was unhappy, the servant would naturally be unhappy as well. Right now, everyone in the palace knew that the number one person who opposed the Holy Emperor and consort Tai Zhen being together was the King of Song, Li Qingqi. The eunuchs in the palace were bound by a common enemy. Eunuch Yu naturally wouldn't be friendly toward the King of Song either. After Eunuch Yu left, the great hall fell into a long silence. Looking at the imperial edict in the King of Song's hands, everyone's heart felt heavy. Everyone knew that the most prestigious Supreme Harmony Palace in the Central Plains would be out of reach for the King of Song from now on. Unless he received a decree from the Holy Emperor, he would no longer have the right to step foot into it. Lu Ting looked at the King of Song by the side, his heart filled with worry. No one had expected that the matter of consort Tai Zhen would develop to such an extent. Originally, everyone thought that their greatest enemies were the Yao clan and King Qi, who supported consort Tai Zhen. As long as they defeated them in the court battle, they would be able to change His Majesty's mind. But at this moment, everyone realized that their true opponent had always been one person, and that was the current Holy Emperor. And the Yao clan and King Qi were merely obeying the Emperor's decree. Unexpected, unexpected. The King of Song slumped in the Great Hall. He seemed to have suffered a huge blow. Being ostracized in the royal court and losing his authority wasn't the biggest blow to the King of Song. What dealt the King of Song the biggest blow was that the wise and resourceful king of the Tang dynasty, whom he had always regarded as the wisest emperor in the history of the Tang dynasty, was actually going to ostracize him from the royal court for the sake of a woman. This was what the King of Song couldn't accept. Even though losing his authority in the royal court was unbearable, it was still difficult for him to turn around and support consort Tai Zhen. This matter concerned the loyalty of an emperor and the reputation of an official. It was impossible for the King of Song to turn around and support consort Tai Zhen. It seems like that lad has guessed correctly. Suddenly, there was a long sigh, and Lu Ting's familiar voice sounded in the King of Song's ears. "Academic Lu, what do you mean by this?" The King of Song raised his head and asked in astonishment. Lu Ting's words came out of nowhere, and there was no end to it either. No one knew what he meant. "Your Highness, do you still remember Wang Yan's third son, Wang Chong?" Lu Ting shook his head. There was an indescribable feeling in his voice. "I do. Didn't I meet him at the Four Quarters Embassy?" Why would Academic Lu bring this up? The King of Song asked in astonishment. He couldn't understand why Lu Ting would bring up that child at such a time. "Back then, when we were leaving, I paid special attention to him. I have a feeling that that child knew that we would fail." Lu Ting said frankly. "How is that possible?" The King of Song abruptly straightened his body with a look of disbelief on his face. The matters in the royal court were treacherous, and it involved many aspects. Until the very last moment, even officials like them who had been immersed in politics for decades wouldn't know the outcome. How could a teenager like him be so certain of the outcome? Lu Ting only smiled and didn't say anything. Lu Ting's personality was one of those who loved to guide talented juniors. And Wang Chong's capability wasn't just limited to talent. Probably, even Wang Chong himself didn't know that Lu Ting had paid much more attention to him than he had imagined. "Your Highness, do you still remember that he asked about the matter of consort Tai Zhen? Now that I think about it, that child was actually trying to dissuade us. Perhaps it was because he knew that we wouldn't succeed. Thus, he decided to use another method," Lu Ting said. The King of Song was taken aback, and a grim expression finally appeared on his face. If that child was really as Lu Ting said, then he was truly extraordinary. Thinking about it carefully, back then, Wang Chong did seem to be trying to dissuade him. It was just that in that situation, whether it was himself or Lu Ting, it was impossible for them to listen. "Academic Lu, what do you mean? Do you want me to turn around and support consort Tai Zhen?" The King of Song's expression turned ugly. "Your Highness, I don't want you to change your attitude and support consort Tai Zhen. But don't you think that child had hidden meaning behind his words? He kept hinting that he wanted us to meet Prince Shou, Li Mao. I have a feeling that he knows something. His Majesty's attitude towards the matter of consort Tai Zhen is too strange. It's completely different from before. I feel that maybe we really should go look for Prince Shou. Perhaps we can find out something different. Lu Ting said. The King of Song was silent, and his eyes revealed a grim expression. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have even thought about Lu Ting's words. But after so many things had happened, and after receiving 5 imperial edicts, the King of Song's attitude had changed greatly. The Holy Emperor's attitude was too strange. The King of Song had never thought that he would go this far for a woman. In the past, the King of Song didn't know much about consort Tai Zhen. He only knew that she was the wife of Prince Shou, Li Mao. If it was in the past, he definitely wouldn't take a second look at this woman. But now, the King of Song suddenly had a strong desire. He really wanted to know what kind of woman could cause such a change in the Holy Emperor. Time passed slowly, and the hall was silent. Lu Ting didn't rush him. He just stood at the side and silently waited for the King of Song's opinion. Sigh. After some time, a long sigh came from the hall. Help me prepare. I'm going to Prince Shou's residence to meet Jean. Yes, Your Highness. Lu Ting smiled knowingly. He quickly got up and walked out. Chapter 118. The King of Song had left early in the morning but returned very late. Your Highness, how was it? Lu Ting hurriedly came forward to greet the King of Song as soon as he got off the carriage. In fact, he had never left. Ever since the King of Song set off, he had been waiting at the entrance. But for some reason, Lu Ting felt that the King of Song was restless when he returned. Moreover, he looked very tired, as if he had gone through several battles. The King of Song lowered his head and did not speak. His brows were deeply furrowed. After following the King of Song for so long, this was the first time Lu Ting had seen him like this. Everyone in the surroundings, including the guards and maids, had already dispersed. Prince Shou's matter was no small matter. Lu Ting had already contacted the old butler to prevent anyone from eavesdropping. I can't tell you in detail. Let's talk inside. There was a deep wariness in the King of Song's voice. This cautiousness was something Lu Ting had never encountered before. Lu Ting had thought that the guards and maids near the entrance would be enough to deal with Prince Shou's matter. But it seemed like this matter was much more serious than he had imagined. When they arrived at the King of Song's residence, the main hall was tightly shut. All 4 corners outside were guarded by experts from the King of Song's residence. The old butler was personally overseeing things outside. Even a mosquito would not be able to fly in. Shang said it. When they entered the main hall and there were no outsiders, the King of Song's expression visibly relaxed. In the beginning, he was inarticulate. When I asked him, he kept evading the topic and refused to admit it. If I hadn't watched him grow up and brought out the decree His Majesty gave me this morning, I'm afraid he would never have opened his mouth. What did Prince Shou say? Lu Ting's heart buzzed and he immediately blurted out. The King of Song's brows furrowed even tighter than before. He did not answer me directly. He only kept hinting to me to not pursue the matter of consort Tai Zhen. Ah! Lu Ting gasped softly. He looked very surprised, but he quickly reacted. Is Prince Shou unwilling to disobey His Majesty? In the matter of consort Tai Zhen, Prince Shou was undoubtedly a victim. The pain of a father stealing his son's wife was something that could not be told to outsiders. However, Prince Shou was a filial son. It was understandable that he advised the King of Song not to pursue this matter. No. The King of Song shook his head. His expression was solemn as he denied Lu Ting's guess. That's what I thought at first. But that was not the case at all. Although didn't say it directly, he kept hinting to me that this matter might not be as bad as others think, and that he wasn't as wronged as others thought. Ah! Lu Ting exclaimed softly. He was truly shocked. The matter of consort Taizhen was a case of a monarch stealing his subject's wife, and a father stealing his son's wife. This was a fact that all the civil and military officials knew. Moreover, Prince Shou and consort Taizhen had been together for several years and had always been in love. This was also known by everyone. Precisely because of this, so many officials opposed the Holy Emperor and consort Taizhen to enter the palace. On this matter, everyone was on Prince Shou's side. What does Prince Shou mean by this? Could there be some secret behind this? Lu Ting asked in surprise. This political storm in the imperial court involved all the civil and military officials of the Tang dynasty, and even some minor officials in the prefectures. Many people were indignant and attacked consort Taizhen, the Yao clan and King Qi who supported consort Taizhen to enter the palace, and tried to persuade the Holy Emperor. But no one considered Prince Shou. And no one asked Prince Shou. In this matter, everyone thought that Prince Shou was the most serious victim. No matter how harsh one was, no one dared to risk universal condemnation by adding insult to injury by asking Prince Shou. If not for the fact that the King of Song had received 5 imperial edicts in a row and was ostracized from the imperial court, perhaps even the King of Song wouldn't have thought of paying a visit to the King of Song. I can't think of anything about this matter either. The King of Song shook his head. This was actually one of the deepest doubts in his heart. The matter of consort Taizhen is very clear. Back then, when Shang He got married, I even attended his wedding banquet and gave him a pair of jade lions. I really can't think of any other secret behind this matter. Prince Shou's attitude and the taboo words suddenly shrouded this matter in a layer of fog, making it difficult to understand. Your Highness, can you tell me the details of your meeting with Prince Shou? Lu Ting suddenly asked. The King of Song nodded. Lu Ting was his trusted aide. If he couldn't even trust Lu Ting, then there really wasn't anyone he could trust. There were too many strange things about this matter. The King of Song had to find someone to help him think about it. Immediately, the King of Song recounted the entire visit in detail. In between, Lu Ting interjected with a few words, especially asking about Prince Shou's expression and attitude when he spoke. When the King of Song finished, Lu Ting fell into silence for a long time. Your Highness, I'm afraid that we have really overlooked many things regarding the matter of consort Taizhen. Although I don't know what kind of secret lies behind it, Prince Shou clearly isn't as sorrowful as we thought. Indeed. The King of Song nodded. This was also what he felt. As a member of the royal family, the King of Song had special rights. After the gates were closed, he could enter the palace to meet the emperor. Although the carriage was ready, the King of Song did not enter the palace alone. Yin Shan pays his respects to the King of Song, Your Highness. At night, an old man wearing a black robe and a bamboo hat appeared on the King of Song's carriage with a black veil hanging from his head. The old man bowed and lowered his head. He seemed to be deliberately hiding his face, not wanting anyone other than the King of Song to see him. At this time, even Lu Ting, whom the King of Song had always trusted, was cast aside. Mr. Yin Shan, you've worked hard. When my father was still alive, we had an agreement not to trouble you for anything unusual. However, there's a reason for this, so I'll have to trouble you to go to the palace with me. The carriage door was open. The King of Song had been waiting at the door for a long time. He looked very respectful. Hee, there's no need to be so polite, Your Highness. Whether it's the King of Song or Your Highness, they're all trustworthy people. Ever since you took over as the King of Song, Your Highness has only used Yin Shan a few times. The last time was 6 years ago. Now, Your Highness has a need. Would Yin Shan dare to disobey? Mr. Yin Shan chuckled. His voice was low, hoarse, and there was an indescribable strangeness to it. The King of Song nodded and moved aside. Mr. Yin Shan lowered his head and slid into the carriage like a shadow. He did not make any sound. The King of Song did not know much about this, Mr. Yin Shan. He only knew that he was an extraordinary person passed down from his father. His father respected him very much. It could even be said that it was beyond respect. The king of Song had once told him not to easily ask for Yin Shan's help unless it was absolutely necessary. If not for the 5 imperial edicts, if not for the fact that the matter of consort Taizhen concerned the entire civil and military court, if not for the fact that Prince Shou's words were too strange, the king of Song would never have asked for Yin Shan's help. Let's go. As soon as Song Yunxuan's voice fell, the carriage immediately moved away. The rumbling of carriages could be heard outside, but the interior was deathly silent. Neither King Song nor Mr. Yin Shan spoke. After entering the carriage, Mr. Yin Shan automatically sat in the furthest corner of the carriage, blending in with the shadows. It was as if he was naturally afraid of sunlight. Boom! Chapter 119. As the carriage entered the imperial palace, an invisible pressure spread out from the center of the imperial palace in all directions, covering the sky and covering the earth. Any martial artist, even an expert like the King of Song, would feel a sense of pressure. In the carriage, Mr. Yin Shan was curled up into a ball, not making a single sound. At such a close distance, even the King of Song wouldn't have been able to sense Mr. Yin Shan's presence if he hadn't known beforehand. The royal palace had always been the place with the most experts in the Central Plains. Even describing it as a tiger's lair wasn't enough to describe it. Mr. Yin Shan clearly didn't want to attract the attention of the experts in the royal palace. The carriage was even quieter than before. Hung long long. After an unknown period of time, the rumbling of a carriage suddenly sounded from outside. Is that the King of Song ahead? A sharp voice sounded from outside the carriage. That's right. His Majesty has ordered that no one is to meet him today. The King of Song should return. The eunuch's voice was calm. Yes. I understand. Gong, please return. I'll be back soon. The King of Song was silent for a moment before replying. Outside the carriage, the eunuch didn't think too much about it. After receiving the King of Song's words, he immediately turned around and left. The rumbling of the carriage soon disappeared outside. Let's go. Without any hesitation, the King of Song listened intently in the carriage. The moment the eunuch disappeared, he immediately ordered the coachman to head in the direction of Yuzhen Palace. A prince had to have a reason to enter the royal palace, and meeting the emperor was the best one. The King of Song knew that he would be rejected, but his goal wasn't to meet the emperor. Mr. Yin Shan, we can't stay in the royal palace for too long, nor can we venture too deep. Otherwise, we'll be discovered by the royal consecrators in the royal palace. We don't have much time, so I'll have to trouble you. The King of Song said. The King of Song didn't know much about Mr. Yin Shan. They only knew that he had the innate divination art, could read faces, and could measure numbers. Moreover, he also had a long-lost ability, aura divination. It was rumored that different people's heads would emit different qi. The Son of Heaven had the qi of the Son of Heaven, the Minister of Generals had the qi of generals, the young had the qi of vigor, the old had the qi of grayness and decrepitude. Ordinary people can't see these qis, but warlocks who are good at observing qis can see them. Mr. Yin Shan's qi observation technique was different. He could observe one's appearance through qi observation. The carriage rumbled on for an unknown period of time. Through the window of the carriage, one could see a palace that resembled colored glass, brightly lit. Mr. Yin Shan's last sentence seemed to have a hidden meaning. The moment he finished speaking, he slid out of the carriage like a shadow and disappeared silently, just like how he had appeared. The King of Song had already stretched out his arm, but he retracted it in the end. Mr. Yin Shan's task had been completed, and the rest had nothing to do with him. Consort Tai Zhen was actually still a virgin. This was something the King of Song hadn't expected. However, Mr. Yin Shan would never lie. What exactly is going on? The King of Song's mind was in a mess. Return to the residence and immediately summon Academic Lu for questioning. In the main hall of the King of Song residence, the King of Song, Lu Ting, and the old butler were gathered together. None of them spoke. Your Highness, could Prince Shou be impossible? Lu Ting originally wanted to say that Prince Shou was impotent, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by the King of Song. Shang-er was no longer a virgin at the age of 14. Many people in the Prince Shou residence know about this. Could it be that His Majesty intentionally placed it with Prince Shou to deceive others? Lu Ting asked again. This was the only answer he could think of. This was the only explanation as to why Prince Shou didn't mind the Sage King forcefully seizing Prince Shou Li Mao's wife. Furthermore, even after 2 years of marriage, Consort Tai Zhen was still a virgin. His Majesty is the Emperor and his words carry enormous weight. If he likes a woman, no one in the palace would dare to object. Why would he need Prince Shou to cover it up? The King of Song asked. This, Lu Ting was also stunned. If the Emperor fancied a woman, he would be frank and open. There was indeed no need for Prince Shou to cover it up. There was no concubine in the palace who dared to be so jealous. Furthermore, there's another suspicious point. This isn't the first day Consort Tai Zhen entered the Yuzhen Palace. I heard that His Majesty, the Holy Emperor, has been there several times and even stayed the night there. Since His Majesty likes her so much that he even went to the extent of denouncing the King of Song, why is Consort Tai Zhen still a virgin? The old butler asked. It was understandable if Lu Ting said that Prince Shou was impotent, but the Holy Emperor was someone who favored the 3 palaces, 6 courtyards, and 72 concubines. He wasn't an abstinent person. It didn't make sense that Consort Tai Zhen was still a virgin even after entering the palace for more than a month. In the main hall, the brows of the trio were deeply knitted together. Your Highness, I think that we should ask someone about this matter. Lu Ting suddenly chuckled. Who? The King of Song asked. Wang Chong. Lu Ting chuckled. Upon hearing those words, the bodies of the King of Song and the old butler trembled. That's right. Now that they thought about it, all of this was caused by the 3rd son of the Wang clan, Wang Chong. If not for him, the King of Song wouldn't have thought of asking Prince Shou about it. Nor would he have realized that Consort Tai Zhen was still a virgin. There was no doubt that Wang Chong was the best person to ask. I underestimated him back at the 4 Quarters Embassy. Recalling the past, the King of Song suddenly let out a long sigh. Lu Ting, I'll have to trouble you to make a trip to the Wang clan. Tell him that I have something to ask of him. Now, I can only discuss this matter with him. Lu Ting smiled, clasped his hands, and took his leave. In the courtyard of the Wang clan, a figure was seated motionlessly. Mist was gathering from all directions, shrouding his entire body. Ignoring the commotion in the royal court, Wang Chong was cultivating might of the barbaric god alone in the residence. Endless origin energy was gathering from all directions, seeping into Wang Chong's body, turning into weak origin energy that circulated through his meridians before settling in Wang Chong's dantian, turning into strands of origin energy. This was might. What might of the barbaric god cultivated wasn't just origin energy, but layers upon layers of might. This might was stronger and more explosive. It was completely different from ordinary cultivation techniques. 6th layer. After an unknown period of time, when the might in his body condensed into a circular shape and settled in his dantian, Wang Chong heaved a sigh of relief. The 1st layer of might of the barbaric god was the cultivation of might. But before the 9th layer, what was cultivated wasn't called beast might, but the basic Yuan Qi might. Wang Chong spent several days cultivating day and night before he managed to cultivate Yuan Qi might to the same level as him, Yuan Qi might level 6. Let me test out the power of Yuan Qi might. Wang Chong's eyes focused on a fake mountain in front of him, and there was something special in his eyes. Pang! Wang Chong suddenly punched out, and this punch was more than twice as fast as Wang Chang's previous punches. The fist struck the fake mountain, and it suddenly exploded with a bang. Smoke rose into the air, and it turned into the smallest powder. Hee, not bad. Looking at the fake mountain that turned into powder, Wang Chong laughed. When ordinary martial artists punched out, they would at most smash the fake mountain into countless tiny pieces. But Might of the Barbaric God was different. Punching the fake mountain with Might of the Barbaric God. The fake mountain didn't just shatter, but completely disintegrated. This was the greatest difference. Not only so, my strength has increased by quite a bit. Wang Chong looked at a fake mountain that weighed more than 400 jin not too far away. Stabbing his palm into the bottom of the fake mountain, he exerted his strength. Hong Long Long, this fake mountain, which was impossible for an Origin Energy Tier 6 martial artist to lift, suddenly rose into the air. Wang Chong supported it with a single hand, and he even spun it around in his palm before putting it down. Young Master, Academic Lu Ting is here. Chapter 120. You're finally here. It's much earlier than I expected. Hearing Shanhai and Meng Long's words, Wang Chong's eyes lit up. He smiled as he retracted his cultivation and walked out slowly. Even though Lu Ting didn't say why he was looking for him, Wang Chong knew that it was most likely to consort Tai Zhen. Even though Wang Chong didn't pay much attention to the affairs of the royal court, he knew that it had been a few days since the King of Song attended the morning court assembly. Wang Chong thought that the King of Song would need at least 10 more days before he would wake up. Yet, he came so quickly. It was much earlier than he expected. Wang Chong met Lu Ting in the main hall of the Wang family residence. Lu Ting sat by the tea table with a porcelain tea gu in his hand. He seemed to have been waiting for a moment. Upon seeing Wang Chong enter, Lu Ting's eyes flashed. The 15-year-old Wang Chong walked in wearing a loose gray training robe. His belt was tied casually, and his black hair, sharp eyebrows, and bright eyes made him look extremely handsome. He didn't notice it in the past, but upon seeing Wang Chong this time, Lu Ting suddenly realized that this youngster had a calmness and confidence that none of his peers possessed. It was as though he had a motive for everything he did. Regardless of whether it was the vast Crane Pavilion or the Four Quarters Embassy, no one could treat him as a teenager. In fact, there were times when Lu Ting felt that he was ignorant and unknowingly treated him as a peer whom he could seek guidance from. In the past, this would have been unimaginable for Lu Ting. Gongzi, Lu Ting pays his respects. Lu Ting abruptly stood up and bowed deeply. Lord Lu, why are you bowing? I'm not worthy of it. Wang Chong stood at the entrance and chuckled. This Lu Ting gave him a playful feeling. He thought that he had carried out the matter at the vast Crane Pavilion discreetly, but this Lu Ting seemed to have seen through his plans. Furthermore, regarding the matter of consort Tai Zhen, Wang Chong was willing to bet that Lu Ting was involved. He was certain that Lu Ting had connections in this matter. Young master is truly a godly person. Consort Tai Zhen's matter had been guessed correctly by young master. I can accept this gift, I can accept it. Lu Ting could not help but laugh in his heart. Just a moment ago, she had thought that he was mature and steady, like an adult. But at this moment, Wang Chong asked a question he already knew the answer to, like a child. What? I don't remember saying anything. Wang Chong pretended not to understand. At the Four Quarters Embassy, didn't you want to dissuade the King of Song from consort Tai Zhen? Lu Ting bowed and cooperated. Lord Lu, you must be mistaken. I don't remember dissuading the King of Song. I only asked the King of Song to visit Prince Shou and catch up with him. The smile on Wang Chong's face grew wider. Young master, don't tease me. I was in the wrong previously, I was in the wrong, alright? If Gongzi has any opinions in the future, feel free to voice them. I will try my best to persuade the King of Song. Lu Ting shrugged and admitted defeat with a bitter smile. Ha ha ha. Wang Chong laughed. Lu Ting couldn't help but laugh along with him. Some matters were better left untouched. Back at the Four Quarters Embassy, Lu Ting shared the same thoughts as the King of Song. They thought that Wang Chong's persuasion was an act of treason. This was the first trust crisis between them. If there was no trust between them, it would be impossible for them to work together. This was the reason why Wang Chong feigned ignorance and Lu Ting admitted defeat. Only by breaking through the barrier in their hearts could they truly continue to cooperate. Lord Lu, remember what you said. Wang Chong pointed a finger at Lu Ting with a smile. Of course, a gentleman's words cannot be taken back. Chong Gongzi has already proven himself with your capabilities. How could Lu Ting dare to say anything else? Lu Ting said. This wasn't a compliment, but Lu Ting's heartfelt words. Regardless of whether it was the matter at the vast crane pavilion or the matter regarding consort Tai Zhen, they weren't small matters. Even though Wang Chong was young, the wisdom and insight he displayed on such a huge matter left even Lu Ting in awe. Yao Guangyi's defeat was the best proof of this. Chong Gongzi, due to the matter regarding consort Tai Zhen, the King of Song has been ordered by the Holy Emperor to recuperate at home. This matter is of utmost importance, so I'll have to trouble Gongzi to accompany me to the King of Song's residence. His Highness has been waiting for a long time. Lu Ting said sincerely. I'll be troubling Lord Lu then. Seeing the severity of Lu Ting's words, Wang Chong didn't turn down the offer. The two of them entered the carriage, and from the king's residence, they headed straight for the King of Song's residence. Wang Chong met the King of Song in the main hall of the King of Song's residence. The King of Song, Lu Ting, the old butler, and Wang Chong made up everyone in the main hall. Other than them, there wasn't a single person in the main hall. The doors to the main hall were tightly shut, and the surroundings, corners, and roofs were filled with experts from the king's residence. Even though this was the first time Wang Chong had entered the King of Song's residence, he could sense the heavy atmosphere. Chong Gongzi, are you going to tell us now? In the main hall, the King of Song, the old butler, Lu Ting, and everyone's gazes were gathered on Wang Chong. The matter regarding King Shou and consort Tai Zhen had been bothering the King of Song for a very long time. In the King of Song's opinion, there was only one person who knew the secret behind it. That person must be Wang Chong. If not for Wang Chong's reminder, the King of Song would never have thought of meeting King Shou, nor would he have realized that his consort Tai Zhen, whom he had been married to for several years, was still a virgin. When they first met at the Four Quarters Embassy, the King of Song still blamed Wang Chong for his lack of propriety. But now, he no longer dared to harbor such thoughts. Your Highness, do you think that I know the truth? Just as everyone was anticipating Wang Chong's answer, Wang Chong's reply surprised everyone. You don't know. The King of Song was taken aback. The reason why he invited Wang Chong over was because he was certain that Wang Chong knew the answer. He didn't expect Wang Chong to say that he didn't know either. Your Highness, you overestimate Wang Chong. I would like to know the truth, but I don't know the truth either. Wang Chong shook his head with a bitter smile. The matter of consort Tai Zhen was a mystery to Wang Chong, be it in his previous life or his current one. In fact, on the way here, when Wang Chong learned from Lu Ting that consort Tai Zhen was a virgin, Wang Chong was even more shocked than Lu Ting. Regardless of which time-space continuum he was in, it would only mean that consort Tai Zhen and King Shou didn't have any offspring. However, there was no mention of consort Tai Zhen being a virgin when she married into the royal palace. How could Wang Chong not be surprised by this outcome? The King of Song was looking forward to hearing an answer from him, but Wang Chong probably didn't know much more than him. Chong Gongzi, that's not what you said on the way here. If you don't know the answer, why would you advise your Highness to meet King Shou? Lu Ting frowned as well. As he was in a hurry to bring Wang Chong to meet the King of Song, he didn't pursue the truth along the way. On the other hand, Wang Chong asked him about King Shou and consort Taizhen. Your Highness and Lord Lu have misunderstood. Wang Chong didn't hide anything and revealed the matter of him seeing King Shou. However, Wang Chong changed the matter from his previous life to this life. So, you grew suspicious because you saw King Shou. The disappointment in the King of Song's eyes couldn't be concealed. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. He thought that Wang Chong would know the answer, but he didn't expect it to be the case. Your Highness, I thought that this isn't what you are worried about. Wang Chong looked at the King of Song and smiled. Is the truth really important? I just want to know, regardless of what the truth is, has your Highness thought of what you should do next? Hearing Wang Chong's words, the faces of the King of Song and Lu Ting immediately darkened. The old butler looked at Wang Chong with a solemn gaze. Your Highness, regardless of what the truth is. There are only two possibilities. The first is that your Majesty has indeed snatched King Shou's wife, and this is against the moral principles. There's no need to elaborate on this. The second is that there's more to it than meets the eye. This matter isn't what the outside world thinks, where a group snatches the wife of a subject, or a father snatches the wife of his son. If this is the case, has your Highness thought of how you should deal with it? Wang Chong met the gaze of the King of Song and said calmly. These words were extremely bold. In the past, Wang Chong would never dare to say such words. But times had changed. Now, the King of Song had taken the initiative to invite him over. Moreover, the matter of consort Taizhen was of great importance. Not only did it concern the King of Song, but it also concerned Big Uncle and the Wang clan. Wang Chong couldn't just ignore it. Wang Chong was well aware that the King of Song didn't have much time left. Wang Chong, how can you speak to the King of Song in such a manner? Lu Ting reprimanded. It doesn't matter. The King of Song waved his hand, a contemplative look on his face. In the past, if Wang Chong dared to speak to him in such a manner, he would definitely fly into a rage. But now, the 5 imperial edicts had given him a wake-up call and calmed him down. The King of Song wouldn't be the same as he was in the past. Wang Chong, what are you trying to say? The King of Song let out a long sigh, and his figure revealed a sense of exhaustion. Your Highness, the matter of consort Taizhen will be settled in a few days. Your Highness really doesn't have much time left. Wang Chong sighed and changed his tone. His voice was much gentler. It was actually very strange for a teenager to say such words. But whether it was the King of Song, Lu Ting, or the old butler who hadn't spoken much, none of them thought much of it. They seemed to have naturally accepted Wang Chong's attitude. Your Highness, His Majesty's stance on this matter is clear. His Highness and my big uncle led the officials to join hands and oppose His Majesty and consort Taizhen. In order to protect consort Taizhen, His Majesty didn't hesitate to issue 5 imperial edicts to expel your Highness from the royal court. Has your Highness ever thought that if even your Highness is like this, what would happen to the other officials? When this matter is settled, what will happen to consort Taizhen? If consort Taizhen becomes the empress one day, how do you think she will treat those who opposed her? Wang Chong's words were very gentle, but when they landed in the main hall, they were no less than a heavy bomb. You mean that this matter will implicate the other officials? The King of Song's expression finally changed. He had been hesitating about what to do about this matter. To oppose His Majesty or not. But Wang Chong's words made his heart turn cold. He had been focused on what he should do, but he had neglected what this matter would do to the royal court and the other officials. Impossible. His Majesty definitely wouldn't dare to do this. That's half of the officials. The King of Song's face paled. What do you think, Your Highness? Wang Chong let out a long sigh in his heart. If the King of Song didn't change his attitude, this wasn't a question of whether it would happen or not. It was something that would definitely happen. No one understood why the holy emperor would be so protective of a woman, but this was the truth. Consort Taizhen's place in the holy emperor's heart was far more important than anyone could imagine. As for the reason, it was destined to be a mystery, and there was no way to explain it to outsiders. The main hall was quiet. The King of Song's eyes were wide open, and cold sweat was dripping from his forehead. Lu Ting's expression was definitely not any better. Looking at Wang Chong, Lu Ting looked like he had seen a ghost. This young man's insight into the affairs of the world was far beyond his imagination. While he and the King of Song were still trying to figure out the secrets of King Shou and consort Taizhen, Wang Chong had already considered the possible consequences of this matter. At this moment, Lu Ting couldn't help but feel fortunate that he had noticed Wang Chong in the vast crane pavilion and invited Wang Chong over. Otherwise, no one knew when they would wake up to reality. Just the thought of the consequences of having half of the officials involved in this matter left even Lu Ting feeling fearful. At this moment, the main hall was deathly silent, and only heavy breathing could be heard. Upon seeing this sight, Wang Chong nodded his head slightly. It was already impressive that the King of Song and the others were able to realize this point. At least his efforts in the Four Quarters Embassy weren't in vain. Has your Highness ever thought about it? If half of the officials were to be demoted or even exiled to other prefectures, with King Qi and the Yao clan in charge of the royal court, what would happen next? It's fine if it's the Yao clan. Old Master Yao still wants to save face. But what about King Qi? Given King Qi's personality and style, do you think that he would let go of such an opportunity? If the military affairs of the royal court were to fall into the hands of selfish people like the Yao clan and King Qi, what do you think will happen in the future? Wang Chong said earnestly. Only at this moment did Wang Chong voice out the words of advice he had been harboring in his heart. In the Four Quarters Embassy, Wang Chong didn't say these words, and he couldn't say them. But now, the King of Song had accepted 5 imperial edicts and was idling at home. The weight of his words was far greater than before. The complexion of King of Song turned even more awful. The old butler and Lu Ting's complexion didn't look too good either. What Wang Chong said was something that they had never considered before. What do you think I should do? The King of Song finally raised his head and stared at Wang Chong. Looking at this upright third son of Wang Yan, the King of Song no longer dared to underestimate him due to his age and appearance. At this moment, the King of Song had truly regarded Wang Chong as a little strategist. And one that carried a lot of weight. I'll have to ask your Highness about this. On one side is a private affair, and on the other side is a national affair. Which does your Highness think is more important? Wang Chong smiled. He knew that the King of Song had already made up his mind. But are you going to disregard the relationship between an official and a ruler? The King of Song asked in return. Then, which does your Highness think is more important, the reputation of an official or the national affairs of the Tang dynasty? Wang Chong said fearlessly. Sigh. The King of Song let out a long sigh. A deep sense of defeat suddenly welled up in his heart. He already knew what he should do. Your Highness, you don't have to blame yourself. In this matter, Prince Shou wasn't harmed, Consort Taizhen wasn't harmed, and His Majesty wasn't harmed either. Isn't that enough? To benefit the country, one's life and death is at stake. How can one avoid it because of misfortune or good fortune? As long as it's beneficial to the Tang dynasty and the country, why should your Highness care about personal gains and losses? Wang Chong comforted him. Wang Chong respected the King of Song from the bottom of his heart. If an ordinary person were to encounter the King of Song's situation, they would probably have surrendered long ago. Only an upright person like the King of Song would feel tormented and struggle for so long. To benefit the country, one's life and death is at stake. How can one avoid it because of misfortune or good fortune? Well said, well said. The King of Song let out a long sigh and returned to his original appearance. Chapter 121. The King of Song sighed in his heart. What was done could not be undone. The current situation was no longer one where he could do whatever he wanted. In the court, the Holy Emperor's 5 imperial edicts had already excluded him from the scope of court discussions. Moreover, all the civil and military officials would follow his lead in this matter. Now that half of the court officials were vehemently against it, His Majesty and Consort Taizhen would definitely blame it on him. No matter what he did, he could not change the situation now. The main hall was quiet, and the atmosphere was heavy. Even without the King of Song's explanation, everyone knew what situation the King of Song was in. The Emperor was not joking. In the current situation, even if the King of Song changed his attitude, it would be difficult for him to return to the court and regain his previous position. The victory of King Qi and the Yao family was inevitable. What I'm worried about now is the officials in the court. I hope His Majesty will not demote half of the officials because of this matter. The King of Song's voice was full of worry. Your Highness, is it possible to meet the Holy Emperor? With His Majesty's trust in you, there might be a chance to salvage this matter. The old steward, who had not spoken much, had a thoughtful look in his eyes. It's impossible. His Majesty is really angry about this matter. All of us have underestimated His Majesty's position on this matter. Now, he will definitely not meet me. And in the court, King Qi and the Yao family will definitely do everything they can to not give me this chance. The King of Song said. A trace of helplessness flashed in the old steward's eyes. Although he was unparalleled in cultivation, he was not good at this kind of court strategy. Moreover, if I suddenly change my attitude, how will the officials in the court view me? How will His Majesty view me? How will the court view me? Even if I suddenly support His Majesty, it may not be as effective as you think. The King of Song sighed. Lu Ting was also speechless. There was no turning back. This was the situation the King of Song was facing now. No matter what he did, the blame would be placed on him. Now, even Lu Ting couldn't think of a solution. One wrong step in the imperial court would lead to many wrong steps. Even though they foresaw that half of the civil and military officials would be implicated, even though they foresaw that King Qi and the Yao clan would rise to power in the imperial court, they could do nothing. Is there really no other way? Lu Ting said unwillingly. Actually, regarding this matter, Your Highness doesn't necessarily have to express your support for Consort Taizhen. After an unknown amount of time, just as everyone was in a daze, Wang Chang's voice rang in everyone's ears. His voice was clear and unrestrained. At this time, it gave people a feeling of being able to see the sun through the clouds. Chapter 123. The Tang dynasty was a world of martial arts. At the very least, it wasn't the ordinary world that Wang Chong thought of. It was precisely because it was a world of martial arts that there were many cultivators that could be hired. These cultivators were of different backgrounds, and their hiring habits were different as well. Some of them would only accept a single mission, some of them would work for a period of at least a month, and some of them would have all kinds of bizarre conditions attached to their jobs. Furthermore, these people came from different backgrounds, and there were many reasons behind their hiring. Some of them simply wanted to earn money, but there were also some who had ulterior motives. In the past, it wasn't as if there weren't any cases of hired cultivators purposely killing their employers and robbing them of their belongings. Thus, it was up to the employers to check on them. This is the place. In the southwest of the capital, near the city walls, Wang Chong lifted his head and stared at the ordinary-looking tea house before him. There were only 4 simple words on the tea house, House of the Four Seas. The paint on the signboard was slightly peeling, and it seemed to be quite old. Young master, is this the place? This place looks really shabby. Shen Hai and Meng Long frowned in bewilderment. Even though it was a tea house, there weren't many customers here. Furthermore, the location was extremely remote. Given the circumstances of a tea house, if there weren't any customers, they would definitely have to pay for it. Don't worry. This is the place. Wang Chong chuckled. If it was really a tea house, of course he would have to pay for it. But it wasn't here. There wasn't a single place in the entire Tang dynasty that hired cultivators in the bustling city. The more remote the location, the better. The House of the Four Seas that Wang Chong was looking at was just one of the many places that hired cultivators. Beckoning to Shen Hai and Meng Long, Wang Chong led the two of them into the tea house. Even though the exterior was dirty and old, the interior of the tea house was extremely clean. Walking in, Wang Chong noticed that the wooden stairs were spotless, and the paint on them was extremely neat. In addition, the floor was very clean. Although it couldn't be said to be luxurious, it definitely wasn't as simple as it looked. At the very least, it had reached a normal standard. There were many tables in the tea house. Many cultivators wore different clothes and had different temperaments. Some were lying down, some were sitting, some were resting with their eyes closed, and some were drinking alone. When Wang Chong entered, he found that there were still a lot of people here to hire people. Many of them were dressed like wealthy merchants, so the appearance of Wang Chong and the others did not attract much attention. Shopkeeper, who has the highest hiring price here? But when she traced it back, the source of all this was an unexpected person. It was Xiao Zhu of the Clothes Incineration Workshop who told me. When Xiao Zhu of the Clothes Incineration Workshop was summoned, she knelt on the ground, trembling. What Consort Taizhen received was an unexpected answer. Your Highness, please calm down. I read that poem from His Highness the King of Song's letter. The King of Song. Chapter 125. In the palace tent, Consort Taizhen could not believe that this matter had anything to do with the King of Song. Are you talking about the letter that I asked you to burn? Consort Taizhen said in a low voice, but she was not angry. Your Highness, please forgive me. This servant was bold enough not to burn it. This servant really could not bear it. Give it to me. Curiosity overcame everything. She was not in the mood to blame this palace maid for secretly keeping the letter from the King of Song. In her heart, Consort Taizhen was also very confused. In her impression, the seal that the King of Song had sent should have been to scold her, but how could it have anything to do with a poem? How could a poem scold someone? Moreover, it was really scolding someone. Forget about this palace maid and servant, what was up with those old nannies? These thoughts made her more and more curious, and she had no time to blame them. The letter was quickly taken out. It was still in its original state, but the lead seal was gone. Consort Taizhen sat in the palace tent. This was the arrangement of the Holy Emperor and that Master Diviner. No one was allowed to approach her. Even the palace maids and servants lowered their heads when they entered to deliver clothes, snacks, and serve her, not daring to look at her. According to that Master Diviner, this was the only way for the Phoenix Spirit to seal Hong Wan and Consort Taizhen to safely survive this calamity. Open the letter and read it to me. Consort Taizhen ordered. It was impossible to make out her expression. Yes, Your Highness. The palace maid of the Clothes Incineration Workshop, Xiao Zhu, was trembling all over, but she suppressed her fear and took out the letter. In an instant, all the palace maids, servants, maids, guards, and even the stern old nannies in the room subconsciously looked over. In the past, they had all more or less heard fragments of this poem. But none of them had heard the complete poem. They only remembered that it was extremely beautiful. "Read it," Consort Taizhen said with a hint of anger. She really could not understand what the King of Song had done to mess up her Yuzhen palace after he had sent her a letter to criticize her last time. "Yes." Xiao Zhu of the clothes incineration workshop answered and took a deep breath. At that moment, everyone could feel the change in her. Just a moment ago, Xiao Zhu was still trembling in fear. But in the next moment, when she held the poem in her hands, she suddenly calmed down. Her delicate face shone brightly, revealing a soul-stirring gentleness. It was as if she was looking at her lover. Song of Purity and Peace. Xiao Zhu recited the name of the poem. Her voice was very clear and gentle, as if it tugged at one's heartstrings, causing one's heart to feel an indescribable tenderness. "This is a folk song poem." Consort Taizhen was stunned. She did not expect that it was really a poem. This was the first time they truly understood the content of the poem, and it was even more beautiful than they had imagined. If not for meeting at the top of the Jade Mountain, when the third line was recited, the breathing in the tent quickened. "We'll meet under the moon at the Jade Pavilion." When the last line was recited, the entire Yuzhen Palace fell silent. Ah, the spring breeze. Brushing the balustrade, one could vaguely see the beauty of that woman. How could there be such a beautiful woman in the world? Could it be that I accidentally entered the Jade Pavilion? Otherwise, she must be a fairy from the Jade Pavilion, right? After the poem was recited, the entire Yuzhen Palace was suddenly filled with a strange charm. Everyone was immersed in the beautiful mood of the poem, and for a long time, no one said a word. Everyone was in a daze. Just like those unsmiling old nannies, there was a strange gentleness on their faces. Their youthful memories had been stirred up by this poem. Even though their sideburns were gray and their hair was gray, who hadn't been young before? Who hadn't experienced the first awakening of love? Even if they were old nannies who were cold, serious, and did not know how to flirt, they could still sense the beautiful artistic conception in the poem. Silence. Absolute silence. Consort Taizhen sat in the red tent, feeling as though her heart had melted. After a long time, everyone finally awoke from the mood of the Song of Purity and Peace, and they secretly glanced at Consort Taizhen in the red tent. Even though they weren't literate and didn't know any poems, they knew that this elegant and enchanting poem was praising a woman. This letter was given to Consort Taizhen by the King of Song. Without a doubt, the fairy-like and beautiful woman in the poem must be Consort Taizhen. This was also the reason why everyone had been sneaking glances at Consort Taizhen these past few days. Even though Consort Taizhen had been in the palace for quite some time, due to the Holy Emperor's orders, not many people had seen her true appearance. There were many concubines and princesses in the palace, so everyone had thought that no matter how beautiful this Consort Taizhen was, she would only be comparable to the other concubines. But after hearing this poem, everyone couldn't help but feel a surge of emotions. For a woman to be praised in such a manner in the poem, she must not be an ordinary beauty, right? She must be extremely beautiful, just like the poem said, like a fairy from the Jade Pavilion. That's it? The voice in the red tent suddenly asked, with a hint of disappointment in it. That's it. Xiao Zhu replied respectfully. The tent was quiet. Consort Taizhen sat there in a daze, an indescribable sense of loss in her heart. She suddenly lost her composure. But no one had ever praised her like this, described her as beautiful. Just like how one's eyes couldn't see one's own face, even though Consort Taizhen knew she was beautiful since she was young, she didn't know how beautiful she was. No one had ever described her as beautiful as this. There was no one who disliked others saying that they were beautiful, and Consort Taizhen was no exception. Am I really that beautiful? Consort Taizhen suddenly felt a little unconfident. That poem described a woman as too beautiful, so beautiful that Consort Taizhen suddenly felt a little unconfident. Was that woman really herself? Was she really that beautiful? Bring that letter over. Consort Taizhen suddenly said. Yes, Your Highness. Xiao Zhu bowed, lowered her head, and respectfully sent King Song to the edge of the tent. Consort Taizhen walked over, stretched out her hand, and took the letter from the King of Song. Song of Purity and Peace, 1. But with just a glance, Consort Taizhen's expression suddenly changed. Xiao Zhu, why didn't you say that this was only one of the poems? Ah! Hearing this, Xiao Zhu hurriedly knelt on the ground, her voice trembling. Your Highness, please forgive me. This servant didn't know that the word one had to be read out loud. The red tent came. Consort Taizhen looked at the first line of the letter. Beside the words Song of Purity and Peace, there was indeed a one. In other words, the poem she saw was only one of the poems. In other words, there might be a second and third poem of purity and peace. Are there any other poems in the envelope? Consort Taizhen asked. None. Your Highness, this is the only poem I saw in the envelope. Xiao Zhu trembled. Hiding a letter from the Queen of Song was no small matter. Forget it. I believe that you wouldn't dare to do so. You may leave. Everyone else may leave. Consort Taizhen sighed and waved her hand. Yes, Your Highness. The crowd immediately lowered their heads and left. But before they left, they couldn't help but sneak a peek at the red tent. This concubine, was actually this beautiful? Yuzhen Palace was silent. The clouds think of her clothes, the flowers think of her face. The spring breeze caresses the railings, the dew is thick. If not for meeting at the top of the Jade Mountain, we will meet under the moon at the Yaotai. She's really beautiful, in the red tent. Consort Taizhen's eyes were dazed. She muttered to herself as she held the letter from the King of Song tightly against her body. That poem had melted her heart. To put it bluntly, Consort Taizhen hated the King of Song to the bone. This prince of the imperial family had slandered her time and time again. He had even led the court officials to submit a petition to strongly oppose her entering the palace and to oppose her being together with the Holy Emperor. Given his past actions, no matter how much she hated him or how she dealt with him in the future, it wouldn't be too much. But for some reason, when she read this letter and the poem on it, the hostility in Consort Taizhen's heart seemed to dissipate. She actually couldn't bring herself to hate him. How could she hate someone who praised her and missed her so much? But in the depths of her heart, Consort Taizhen had another indescribable feeling. The King of Song had slandered her so much and opposed her so much. Why would he send her a letter that praised her now? What was he trying to do? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.